Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
I think this is episode 33. Let's see.
Is it?
Maybe 32. Oh, shoot, it is 33.
Wow, we're flying.
Absolutely flying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode number 33 of Off the Track. I'm your host, Tanner Holmes, and joining me, my co-host, best buddy, Bennett Gooch. Bennett, how's it been?
Pretty good. Racing's kind of dirt racing, I should say, has kind of gotten the full swing of things, or at least the start of the season going. You know, we saw David Gravel pull off the final win after having some bad luck at Volusia for 3 nights, and then Corey Eliason, or he didn't have terrible luck, I guess you could say, but I did just see Corey Eliason won tonight with the All-Star race. I didn't get to watch that, but, you know, big Corey Eliason fan here, so that's cool to see.
Yeah, Corey, which is actually a huge turnaround because, you know, the first night, like I didn't get a chance to watch tonight as well, but he had that incident at East Bay, and it looked like I watched it back on Flow. He was going to pull a tear off, crashes, flips, just, you know, pretty good little incident. And now bounces back.
Actually, have you ever been in a situation where you go to pull a tear off and it doesn't happen, or like you have a little malfunction there?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like most racers, I mean, maybe in the go-karts, it's harder to have those happen because you don't pull tear-offs much, but definitely in the sprint car, there's like absolute slow motion clips I've put up of like me trying to pull them, and it maybe takes 3 tries. It can be a difficult task.
Yeah, I know sometimes I've pulled all my tear-offs in the car, and I'm just about, well, we're done.
We're done, absolutely. So that is definitely a relatable moment, but definitely cool to see Corey Eliason on top. I think the All-Stars now don't race again until April. Right. Outlaw's got a couple of shows coming up, so we'll be watching them as they're kind of like getting their swing or, you know, getting into the season. And pretty much every single weekend, it seems like they will be grinding it out. As far as our last weekend, I was on track at the Roseburg Indoor. Another successful show, pretty solid night. Qualified 5th, won both heats, and won the A main event. And that kind of capped off our season up there. One thing I was going to tell you about, Bennett, man, I feel like here soon we're going to need to do, like when summertime hits and we maybe do some backyard action on the track. Man, we got to do this wingless Outlaw Kart stuff, man. We got to do something on the backyard track with it.
Yeah, I know we always kick around the idea of what to do there, and I still think we need to get like some cheap $500 go-karts or something just to rip back there. But I know me and you and Johnny actually in the upcoming interview, so that's a good way to lead into it. I guess everyone knows by the title. Johnny Burke, who we're going to be interviewing here, said he's down to come up and rip some Outlaw Karts.
Yes, we are going to have some awesome content hitting the channel here. I got it on my whiteboard. I have a big old whiteboard of all my ideas, and one of them is specifically Bennett, Johnny, myself, and whoever we can gather, go-karts, non-wing, whatever. So we talk a little bit about that in this upcoming interview. I mentioned Roseburg. The only other thing really on the agenda for us before we kind of dive in here with Johnny, we are back at the Red Bluff Outlaws this Friday and Saturday night. Points race number 8 on Friday, and Saturday's the $2,000 Twin QRC Karts Perpetual Trophy night. This might be one of the most chaotic weekends of the year, I feel like, with a huge break, and now we're just jumping right back into not just 1, but 2 nights of racing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. And I think one thing I want to note here I think I overheard you say prior is staying in the seat and staying consistent. And I feel like out of everyone that runs Red Bluff often, you've stayed in the seat just about every weekend, if you could, after the first beginning of the break. So I feel like, you know, coming back, you got to have some good confidence after coming off 5 wins in a row at Roseburg, especially with a huge night like Perpetual Trophy night.
Yeah, we're definitely feeling good. And I would agree. I'm kind of surprised more drivers, you know, didn't maybe make a trip or 2 to Roseburg. There was a couple of guys that ran there consistently, one of them being like Chase Hill. A couple guys came up for the winter showdown. I think even just running 1 race or 2. I mean, you know, as a racer and other racers listening, like, you know, I feel like if I'm out of the seat for like a month, you know, and this break was, I think, 8 weeks. Even like 3-4 weeks for me, I already start feeling super rusty. So that was definitely something I prioritized just to, help me behind the wheel and just continue to try to be a better race car driver. So this is going to be a big weekend. QRC Karts Perpetual Trophy Night is always one I think every team kind of circles because, it's a beautiful trophy. It's a trophy that your name's on forever. And we did get it done last year, so I feel like we can definitely be considered one of the favorites. And if we could repeat, that would be absolutely huge. But now to kind of jump into the interview, Johnny Burke, one of my good friends, both Bennett and I, good friends, hung out with him a lot this summer, sprint car racing. We just known him for a good chunk of our racing times as he's from a similar area to us. And I feel like this ended up being one of the coolest episodes we've ever shot on Off the Track.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there because, I'll admit I didn't know too much about Johnny's history, but he really opens up here and talks about all the success that he did have, and some of the hard times in racing, and that's something we all go through. And it was actually pretty cool to learn about that, and then also to hear about him cap off his season last year with his first ever sprint car win. It's pretty cool to hear about it.
Absolutely. So this is actually like almost a 2-hour interview with Johnny Burke. We go into so many different topics relating to Outlaw Karts, sprint cars. If you are a big Outlaw Kart fan, you're going to love this one because we literally dive into the glory days or what we call our golden era of Outlaw Car racing that we got to grow up watching as well as Johnny did. So Outlaw Karts, sprint cars, what it's like, the good, the bad, the struggles, the wins, the exciting moments, all of that in episode number 33 with Johnny Burke. So joining us today on Off the Track, he is the 2021 Freedom Cup champion at the Cottage Grove Speedway in a sprint car. He has many Outlaw Kart championships to his name, and he is one of my best buddies from my local area, the Rogue Valley. It's Johnny Burke. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's sometimes a little uncommon to have our guests sitting within feet of us, so this is going to be a really fun interview. I got one icebreaker question to kind of start off. You guys have been working really, really hard at Johnny Burke Racing on a new race trailer. Big season coming up for you guys. Got a lot planned. What all has went into actually not just buying a trailer, not just going and getting one, buying one, redoing the whole thing, gutting it, and putting a lot of man hours in?
Yeah, so, we had one on order because we were going to buy a brand new trailer. And basically when I ordered that with CargoMate, they pretty much were like, well, could be 8 months, could maybe never get it.
Oh, nice.
Price could change tomorrow. Price could change when you get it. You're just kind of sitting duck. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just get what I want ordered for now. And then I guess I'll wait and see. So actually we were on Speed Week last year.
Yeah.
And it was at Banks, right? So we'd ran, 3 or 4 nights already. And all of a sudden I'm like sitting there at Banks and we were pitted right next to you. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there. And I mean, my old trailer was not sprint car. Was
it the Outlaw Kart trailer too?
Yeah, the gray one.
Yeah.
It was that old.
You guys had to take the wing off every single night. It was packed.
So yeah, so when we went to Speed Week, right, we had to literally navigate. And if it was like playing Tetris, like if everything wasn't in there how it came out, it was not going, and then we'd have to start all over. I was like, I'm over this, right? So like night 3, you're already over it. So like we'd finally like gotten it like to where we were like manageable to like deal until we got our trailer. And like, so we're sitting there that day in Banks, and I'm like, sitting there in my trailer, and I like look over and I see this dude, and he's like taking pictures of this trailer. And I'm like, I tap my dad. I'm like, Dad, go over there and buy that trailer, because that dude's selling that trailer. He's posting pictures of it. So I like go over there and I'm like, hey man, what are you doing with the trailer? And he's like, oh, we're going to sell it. And I was like, I just walked inside, took like 2 looks at it, and I was like, okay, I can do this with that, this with that. And I was like, done. Like, we need to get this, because like we couldn't get one.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, he took a look at it, and then my mom called me. Well, my mom was like full commit to buy a brand new trailer, and like literally I had it built exactly like loft, exactly what I want. They literally brought me like a schematic, and I was like, yeah. So my mom's like, well, like, is this going to work for you? Like, I'll put, because it saved us a lot of money to buy it. So she was like, whatever the difference is, we can, we're going to use it as a write-off for the business. So,
Absolutely.
We can do that. And I'm like, okay. So, and she's like, and anything that we need for it, we can just use on that. So we ended up buying the trailer, saving a bunch of money. So we had to tow it home, got it all home. We actually raced out of it the ending of the last year, just as the convenience factor, So, and it was so much nicer, dude. I didn't have to take a wing off. I even have to change right rears. I just left rear or leave the right rear on if we need to and push it in there. Went just fine. So then basically we this off season, me, my crew chief Travis, and the guys that helped me out, we decided that we were gonna kind of redo it because it had a bathroom and it had like a sink and a table in it. It had a bunch of stuff that wasn't sprint car, that we needed in the
Don't
sprint
need
car.
it.
Yeah, not compatible.
Bathroom. What do you need a bathroom for? A sprint car.
There's blue rooms in the pit.
Yeah, really, like everywhere, right? So actually my dad was like, no, we're keeping the bathroom. I was like, no, that wasn't part of the deal. Like, if we buy the trailer, we're doing it my way, like not your way. I got okayed to do it my way.
That's hard with dads.
Oh, dude, yeah,
It's
right.
hard.
Like he was not having it. So I ended up winning. He's like, fine, we'll get rid of the bathroom. I'm like, dude, there's bathrooms all over it. I've not been to a racetrack that there wasn't a bathroom at.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, and who's gonna clean the bathroom? Because I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it.
That's
Oh,
true.
you think I'm going to do it? Because I'm not. So we ended up yarding the bathroom out. And, well, the flooring had been like, it had like pulled up from the floor. So pulled all the flooring out, pulled the bench out of the front. I got the one cabinet off the wall. And obviously, I mean, you have a pretty nice setup of your trailer that you tow to Cottage Grove. And like when you're going short races, which is kind of like mine's a little bit bigger than yours, but it's like almost like the same, which is perfect for kind of what I need and what I got going on. So it's like, okay, cool. So we yarded all the flooring out of it, got fresh flooring. I actually just got the flooring laid earlier this week, got it all buttoned up because I didn't want it to have any ripple in it. I wanted it to be like perfect. Like I'm doing
Pristine.
this one time.
Yep.
I'm only doing it one time. Well, actually, when I pulled the old flooring up, it had like this glue on it, right? And they had like rolled that stuff on with like a roller. So you'll have to ask Travis for the video. So I hit up Dave Hibbard because he's a flooring guy, right? I'm like, Dave, I got this glue on here. How do I get this stuff off? Dave's like, oh, I got this big old sander. That's how you get it off. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go over, I get the sander, right? And this thing looks like a lawnmower. Okay. And I'm like, okay, this thing's like legit, right? So I take it back to my shop and he's like, be careful. Make sure you hold on to it. It'll take you for a ride. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I start looking up videos on how to operate this thing. So I watched some YouTube videos, how tubed it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this can be easy, right? They didn't say that you needed to scrape the floor to get most of it off before you grab a hold of it. Dude, I literally grabbed that thing wide open and it literally, I'm like holding on to it and it literally just took me and flung me right into the side of the trailer. I literally dented the hole inside of my trailer. And so like, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just doing something wrong. So Travis has a video of me like trying to hold on to the thing and the thing is flying around. It's swinging into my walls and dude, it dented like 4 panels in my trailer. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So finally we just said, bag it. We're not going to take the glue off.
Yeah.
So we just put like another thin piece of wood over the top of it. And then now we laid the new floor and now it's all really nice. But now I got to build a couple, I got to build
panels.
I got to do some new panels. Yeah. So, I mean, so the only thing is it's like an 05. So which actually kind of works out because so it doesn't have the springs on the door. It has a winch. So that's kind of good though for if we blow up or something.
For sure.
Yeah, we can pull an engine out there. I rebuilt the whole bench in the front now because it used to like be like an L shape. I don't need the L that takes up space over here on the left. So now it's just a bench across the front with engine storage underneath.
Perfect.
And then I got a loft up top for all the tires that I just bought last weekend. And so we're getting close there. I got to build the 2 cabinets that I'm going to keep all the shocks, the torsion bars, all that stuff in. And then after that, I just got to build the ramp on the back and finish the door. And then pretty much we'll be ready to go racing for the most part. I got all new lights in there. It's really nice. I mean, so far it's really coming along.
Are you going to get all wrapped or?
So they're going to do a corner wrap on it, which actually is in the works now because it has like this ugly like flame on the side of it. It's kind of funny. Like, and everyone's like, oh, we should just keep the flames and put Burke, right? And I'm like, no, flames are not 2021. Like, flames just aren't it. So they're going to corner wrap it with all the sponsors and stuff for this year. So should be cool. Should turn out really nice when it's all said and done, I'm hoping.
That's sweet. I can't wait to see how that ends up looking because I saw the product that you guys bought and then now obviously like I've seen a lot of in-betweens and so the final deal is going to be super exciting and race season is right around the corner so you guys are going to be using that within next three months.
Yeah, so we have Cottage Grove their practice on the 16th 15th.
Maybe it's somewhere in early March.
Yeah. So because we were going to do we're going to do our first race in Cottage Grove in April 2nd for the limited stuff. And so we were like, okay, well, because we're right now, actually, we're in the process of getting our 360 stuff going now because it's kind of come off of a limited deal. Together, we're going to kind of, we need heads for limited. Well, we found a limited engine. So we can take that third engine, basically turn it into a 360, but we can use those heads that we need.
Gotcha.
That's smart.
On our other limited. And then I found a set of ASCS heads.
Gotcha.
And I need to drive some system, all the rest of the stuff to go with it, which I have most of the piston stuff that I need for that. So then we can start putting that together. But basically, we want to go practice wingless because we're actually going to run the wingless deal in Cottage Grove on April 14th.
Really?
Is that
April
wingless
16th.
360?
I didn't know this.
360?
Yeah, wingless 360 deal. So I'm going to run my limited just the first time, just to try it if my 360 is not done. But yeah, I mean, our plan is to run the limited deal. We're just going to try it out. I mean, Travis was like, honestly.
Yeah, how did this come about? Because
Grove is so small that it's like, you're not wingless. You're not putting all that power to the ground, when it slicks off like that. So he's like, I went there with my last driver and we ran third with a limited against 360s wingless. And I was like, well, let's try it. So, we just kind of figured after I watched the Medford deal.
Yeah, Medford has a big wingless race.
So
it's like, what,
year,
3,500 to win?
3,500 to win. So last year I watched that race, right? I don't think you were there. You were out of town.
There.
It was the best race Medford had all year, and it's not even close. Like, Medford, that show was awesome, dude. The sliders were big. It was sick. I was
Track
like,
was
really?
solid?
Track was awesome, dude. They ran like 6 inches from the wall the whole night.
Well, and that the one guy comes up every single year.
Yeah, Jeff Ensign.
And he just
won.
dominates.
Yeah, and actually, he didn't dominate.
Really?
Dude, he had his hands full. He had Shane Cottle, Daniel Whitley, Rob Lindsay, and there was another guy that ran up front, a younger kid, and I couldn't remember the guy's name. And they all were just trading sliders. It was such a good race, right?
That's
like,
awesome.
dude, I was like standing up the whole time. I was like, this is sick. So then I told Travis, I was like, dude, and like wingless is so much slower. Like,
Yeah, it definitely is.
At first I was like, my mom's like, nope, not happening. And then like you go and see it and you're like, well, it's really not.
100%.
Until you start getting into
I
like
agree.
wingless 410 at big places.
right,
like,
right,
until like the
right.
speeds really.
But
I mean,
I was gonna say even some of the like, what's that series that was at Lake Ozark with us?
the Power Eye,
Something.
the War Sprints.
Yeah, the War Sprints. Like, so there's a mix of motors out there.
They run 305s to 410s.
They
You can just
really-
run anything.
I mean, Lake Ozark's a big track, but they really weren't going near.
Once it
the speed
slicks
of a
off,
wing.
you slow down like really, like it's huge because
But it's sick because it's all technical.
Yeah.
for sure. No, so that's going to be really exciting. So, I mean, you're just going to try wingless and then go from there? Or do you guys have
So right now we have, I think, 3 wingless races on my schedule that
Gotcha.
we're for sure going to try. And then the Medford one, I'm up in the air. So Medford one comes September 23rd, 24th
there's another race?
in Skagit. And I've never been there. And there's apparently there's a big limited race in Skagit.
There's
that weekend.
also an IHS race, I think, that same weekend too. Maybe. I don't know.
No. The last IHS race is in Medford on the 4th and 5th.
Oh, okay.
So the big race in Skagit, though, for I guess limiteds, is supposed to pay really well.
Huh.
And I've never been to Skagit, and
Yeah.
if I don't ever make it there in a 360 next year,
I think you'll like it.
You just
I'd
need to check.
really like to go there because that place looks cool. And like I've never been. Like
even with the
you
new
can check the-
promoters this year, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. You need to just check the rules package because
yeah, so that's
it's
actually
different.
I talked to Heather about that, and she's like, "Well, we're trying to get them on board with us." And actually, they're talking about making it an ISCS race, so then I'd be fine.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Gotcha.
So-
Well, that's super, super exciting. So that's a
So-
little sneak peek at what Johnny's season's going to look like, and we're going to talk a little bit more about all that a little bit later in the episode. Next segment I want to get into, which I'm super excited about. I was just looking through some of my old YouTube videos today and kind of, piecing together how we met, how we all met. And it actually goes back way before really anything at the racetrack. I remember seeing you at the racetrack, back in, because I started running Southern Oregon 2009, probably 2008, 2009. Do you know what year you started?
05
05. Box stock? Beginner box stock. So
I bought my first go-kart from John D. Benedetti.
really?
Yes,
Okay, that's
I
good.
did.
That's cool. That's cool. So I started going to the races, and I believe I pitted kind of close to you. I don't really remember. It's foggy. But one of the fun facts is Johnny and I actually went to the same schools growing up. Like, we went to a place in town, and I remember specifically, I think it was second grade, might have been third grade, second or third grade. Johnny was just getting out of the middle school. So he was in 7th or 8th grade, and every single day, or for the most part, if I caught him at the right time, when I was getting out of class, he would be getting out of class because we went to a really small school. And I would always high five him or whatever. He was like an open driver at the time, or 250 driver or something. So
I think I was a 250.
yeah, 250 driver. So like I was so hyped up, that was the only person I knew or whatever. So that's kind of how that
Racing buddies at school. That's just epic.
It was the only one.
It was literally like, I didn't know, like your dad actually came into my shop, and that's how I met your dad.
Yeah, probably.
Right?
Yeah, because my dad
and then
did.
I saw you at the racetrack, and he introduced us, if I remember right. And I was like, I was barely in 250s, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
I was like 12 or 13 probably. Wow. And so then, like, I remember I saw you at school, yeah. And then I met Carly, and I saw Carly at school. And Carly, she was something else at school. Like, I was like, man, she can be a troublemaker.
Yeah, that's what it ended up being. But that's just funny how that's literally where it all started. Just right here in Medford, where we all went to school. Johnny then moved up. Obviously, he went to the high school, which was different. And I ended up going to that same high school. But just through the years, we became friends. But we never really raced against each other, obviously, until opens. Because, we're just such a huge spread. And that's where you got a couple of my videos. About a year after I started, this is incredible because this would only happen at the Southern Oregon Kart track. But we both show up to race, and I believe we coordinated to both be there on the same night. Hey, are you racing? I'm racing, whatever. So we both go.
Was this a YouTube video?
Yeah, it was. And so we show up, and I think Johnny and I were the only two opens. We were the only two there that night. And we ended up having a video that did really well on the channel. I think it had like 30,000 views somehow. And it was just Johnny and I doing a leader runs the top challenge because we just were like, all right, we're the only two out there. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And Medford, which never was around the top ever.
Yeah.
We just started running through the marbles. At one point, I think you hit an infield tractor tire.
I did. Yeah, I remember they moved. I think they moved the tires up, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, we just were trying
to halfway on the track, and I totally hit one, and I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Why is that even there?" Like,
and your motor wasn't running too, which was funny.
Not.
So he's clutching it the whole time. I'm out there, my stuff's running good, so I'm just like sliding through the dust and whatever. And it came down to the last lap, and I had to run the top in the last corner. So I didn't end up
honestly was prepping for you to not run the top, and the infield slider was coming. But then I saw you run the top, and I was like, "Well, I guess I'm just gonna slide."
I was way too nice back then. So that was one of the funny videos. We also, you guys have seen, we've had a couple of vlogs at Road Karting, and then also notably a place that we've been racing a lot lately, Roseburg. A lot of battles at Roseburg, and you haven't got a chance to run Roseburg lately, but
yeah. So last time I ran Roseburg was
not even last year at all, right?
No,
it was probably the 2020 Winter Showdown when Carly wing hooked you and spun you out. Your orange car.
That's a sore subject.
Yeah,
I still don't like to talk. Yeah, that was actually you beat me to the yellow.
Yeah.
When Jake blew up.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. Because Carly wing hooked me on the next restart.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, great. I'm like, cool. And I saw Jake, and I just remember I'm thinking, I have to beat Tanner back to the yellow. Like, this is critical. This was a huge moment in the race. Because, it was right before half. Actually, it might have been the halfway yellow.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, and it's great that we happen to be racing back side by side at a place that doesn't have transponders.
And I mean, literally, I just remember splitting Jake, and I was like, I'm not going to lift because it's like, I got to beat Tanner back to the yellow. Like, I knew at that point that, if I beat him back to the yellow, then I was in control, where vice versa, he would have been in control.
Yeah, because they weren't doing double foul restarts.
Right, yeah. So I was like, I think it was the Texas style.
Yeah, it was a
yes,
leader
it was.
out front.
So that's how she wing hooked me. She was in third.
Yeah.
And when I slid her, she literally just hooked my wing, and somehow I just literally parked it.
Yeah.
I spun completely around.
Super funny story actually about that race. I still kind of think about it every once in a while. So I was totally overthinking what to do to my race car before that. And I remember I put a 33 on the right rear before because I was like, man, it's a long race. My tires are going to heat up and I'm going to be money. We rolled out there and it was still greasy. And I was like, I'm so done. And I was just out there the whole time just blocking almost, just running different lines, trying to throw people off. Carly actually was fast and you were fast too.
I remember, because I remember early in the race, right? Because I think Jake started pole. He started second, and I
pulled away.
I started third. And he was gone early, right?
I was horrible.
And then I remember you kept, actually, yes, that's right. It was Texas style restart. Because I remember you pulled the top the first time and was like, okay, cool. Because I think I had got door to door with you on the top once. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go high. And then literally I was door to door with you on the bottom. And then you were like, I knew on the next restart, you were like, I could see you doing this. And I just remember I'm like, he really doesn't even know which way to go. And I'm like, I knew that my stuff was so good at the time. I was like, man, I'm just like, I was just kind of cruising along at the time and like just trying to like get control. And that's right. And that's when he broke, that was when I laid it all out there. And I think you slid me coming back, and that's how you got me at the end. And then I was like, man. And then I was like, that sucks. And then go figure, the next restart,
Carly wing
hooks me. And then I think I still finished like third.
I think so. Yeah,
I think so.
I think
because
a bunch of cars.
I was a little upset with Carly, and I definitely fed her a right rear coming back through there. And I felt really bad about it. But it was like, man, she wing hooked me at the wrong time.
Yeah,
like,
that's racing.
Just another driver.
And it definitely was like, I didn't maybe need to give her the right rear, but I was just like, it was like floating up, and I was like, doink. And just like let her know that like, hey, I know you did that to me, and I didn't like that.
That's awesome. That's such a good story. So Roseburg, there's been a ton of really good battles. That was just one of the few, because at one point we always used to, I'd throw up like a Tanner Holmes hoodie, and whoever won that, if he won that night, he got a Tanner Holmes hoodie. So that's part of it. And then there was one other night too that sticks out. We did a race at Wairika, and I was right behind you for like 20 of the 25 laps. And I don't know, maybe looking back, I should have wore you out, but yeah, I didn't get the win, so you beat me on that one. So I think probably right now, besides Roseburg.
Is that the indoor track?
No, it was the outdoor track.
I think he's 2-0 at me at Roseburg.
Yeah, but in those other two, you beat me at both of those. So heck, I mean,
We're tied.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we actually still are tied, because we haven't ran like that
ran in a
since.
while.
Yeah, you beat me in Roseburg with the 4-stroke, and that was embarrassing because like my stuff was good, and it was just like nowhere near. Like it was like I was like, dude, I'm rolling good. Like, and Jesse was there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all three had a great race actually the whole night, and I just kept rolling the bottom, and you guys were like sliding each other, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep rolling the bottom. Eventually, it's gonna pay off.
Yeah.
And it just never did. I ended up second. I was like, dude, like I ran the bottom all night perfect, and you guys were just throwing bombs like next to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. One of them's going to wear each other out, and I'm just going to Christmas gift this deal. And it never, ever happened. And for some reason, I could never get – I just remember, like, you guys would, like, throw bombs, and, like, the bottom just wasn't good enough to where, like, I could – it was – you guys were just fast enough with the grip and the top that, like, it was – we were just side by side the whole time, and I just could never make any ground. I was like, man.
You would like Roseburg now, because heck, if you can roll the bottom now, ooh. So this episode's probably
living around there.
Yeah, this is probably going up a couple weeks from now, but you are running Roseburg so the time we're recording this, let's see the date. It is it's February 2nd.
Yeah.
So you're running this weekend?
Yep, I am. I got my stuff all together.
Johnny's running this weekend. By then you guys know Kyler's running my car this weekend, so that'll be fun.
I was really ready for you to run. I wanted some revenge.
Are you going to maybe run? If you run next weekend, I'll be there.
Oh, are you? Okay,
yeah,
good. Because I will be back as long as my stuff in one piece.
As long as my go-kart's in one piece as well.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I really wanted to show up and in the streak for you.
Shoot.
I thought maybe I had a good enough chance.
You had a good shot this weekend to be in victory lane. So to transition into our next segment, where did racing start for you? Like, was your I don't even know this question or the answer. Did anybody race? Who
okay,
raced?
so nobody raced.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we lived in White City when I first was growing up. I didn't even know what race cars were. Right?
Gotcha.
Like I knew, I mean, my dad was a NASCAR fan, so when NASCAR was cool and like Dale Earnhardt and stuff, those
Who's
days.
your favorite driver? Like
Jeff Gordon, obviously.
Gotcha.
Guys,
makes sense.
The Rainbow Warrior car, too. That thing was sick. You know how many of those little die-cast cars I got?
Oh,
I got
sure.
like probably 20 of them, just the Rainbow Warrior cars.
There you go.
So, so we always grew up, and I always watched NASCAR, played games and that kind of stuff, and then like we moved to Eagle Point. And that was when we met Dawn Earl, Marissa Earl's dad. Used to be a sprint car racer, okay? So they owned a little store there. And we got to know them, became friends with them, like personal friends. And then like one night, Dawn was like, hey, we race these go-kart things out at this speedway. You should come out and check them out. I went out there, dude, and I watched the racing. And I told my dad, I'm like, we need to buy one of these. This thing's fun. And so like we started looking for a go-kart, and actually that's how we got hooked up with John DiBenedetti, and he had a go-kart for sale that I believe Brooke was used to race, and
really?
She was getting out of it. She
crazy.
didn't like
Okay,
it.
gotcha.
So,
and to full circle, just before you ask the question, Brooke DiBenedetti actually now works for my parents, like actually is probably on the floor below us right now working. Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you recall what that cart was?
It was a whole, like, it was I want to say like a 96 QRC.
Really?
Was
down
it
tubes.
Was it
down tube car.
Was it a legit box stock, or is it just their open with a
Well,
box
back then it
motor.
was probably 5-horse.
I think it was just a
Well,
regular.
yeah.
I didn't know they made numerous cars back then. So it had the old school, like the
Yeah.
flippers with the down tube cage.
Yeah.
Sick.
Did
I'll
it
have to
have
get a picture.
Did it have like a bar on the left side that you could like open up?
Yep, it was the door bar open. They weren't welded in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
It was sick.
Yeah,
it
and
was,
like I
it
said,
was a machine.
It was probably like a 5-horse motor though. Yeah.
So, and I remember,
Briggs.
right, like, this was way before your time. So in
Wait.
in Roseburg, right? It used to be a big thing. Roseburg was huge then too, right? So
Oh yeah, you grew up in actually a decent area for
Oregon,
Roseburg. Oregon racing
Oregon
was
go-kart
good.
racing, yeah. So I remember I went to Roseburg, right? My first year there. We ran beginner box all year, right? And actually we did really good. I think I won the championship that year. We won a lot of races. And I remember the deal with my dad, when you win your first main, I'll get you a padded steering wheel. That was the thing, right?
Really?
Like, I wanted a padded steering wheel. I wanted to be like everybody else. I had that old school, like, aluminum steering wheel that, like...
Was there like holes in it or something?
Yeah, it was ghetto. It was ghetto.
wow.
So, and I remember, like, all the cool kids had padded steering wheels in Roseburg.
crazy.
Like, and I just remember seeing all those kids with all those cool steering wheels, and I was like, man, Dad, I want a padded steering wheel. He's like, you know what? Tell you what, you win your first race, I'll get you a padded steering wheel. I remember I won my first race, right? And doing donuts and stuff weren't like really a thing back then.
Yeah.
So I literally went, instead of doing them in the infield, I went out the pit gates.
No way.
And yeah,
Hey, I've done this.
I
I've
started
done this.
spinning Brody's. So like the exit now, that's the exit off of Roseburg.
Yeah.
Right there, I did donuts. Like, dude, I'm literally doing donuts. And obviously I'm in my box stock. It was a Briggs & Stratton, like 5-horse then
Flat
with a
top,
restrictor plate, right? I'm just out there just doing cookies. And the promoter actually got mad at me because that wasn't a thing then. Like, people didn't do that.
Hey, you're just in the pit.
Yeah, that too. So he like wasn't super thrilled, but like whatever, it was cool. And yeah, so I got my padded steering wheel, and it was crazy because like I remember we always used to show up there, and I had to keep like my helmet visor down because they all used to run methanol in their go-kart motors.
So it'd burn your eyes.
Dude, literally burned my eyes. I just
Red
remember
Bluff race.
like right before the race, I'd be like,
I wish we had a camera right now.
and
That's
we
so crazy.
never ran methanol. And I always told my dad, I'm like, Dad, why are they always like so much faster than us? And he's like, but wait till it gets cold. Because when it got cold in Roseburg, right?
Dude, and it's
their
like
motors
32
would never,
degrees.
yeah, right? It's always cold there.
Freezing.
So their motors with the methanol would never build temp. So then they'd run like, they'd burn laps in qualifying, right? Like, I mean, we'd always qualify like 10th, 12th. And there was always like 20 box stocks when we ran.
Yeah. Wow.
Dude, come main time,
Well,
they'd be
back then,
so
too-
slow. I'd just be like, it'd be like they threw out the
Yard
boat
time.
anchors, and I'm like, I'm just running regular fuel.
Also,
We're just burning
Roseburg
the same lap.
format I think when I started there, I swear that there was like the fastest guys always had to start in the back, maybe.
Yeah, I think
don't
you're
know.
right. If I remember right, they did that, and then yeah, I mean that's when. So
That's
so
crazy.
then we did that, and then 250 days were even good then, and we won a few races. That was, if I remember right, that was the most races I've won in like a consecutive season. Other than
Gotcha.
the last time I ran there for a full year with Speed City, we won I think 4 or 5 races.
Gotcha.
Did you ever venture down to other tracks at that time, or just
So
mainly?
I'd been to
Roseburg?
Red Bluff one time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Went to Red Bluff one time, and honestly, looking
Was
back
that
at
box
it,
stock or?
box stock. Yep.
stock,
Went
yeah.
one time, got clapped, ran like the D main. Horrible. In the down tuber though.
Yeah.
So now it was like 05, right? Everyone's got their new go-karts down there. Cameron Bartlett was like waxing
So
everybody.
that's the first
I
year
remember-
before me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
before me, but like there's still like by then there was enough to like be able to like when
Yeah.
I like 5 years later I would like watch videos from then and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, these guys rip.
Tyler Reddick ran like 3 classes.
Yeah.
And he always came to Medford, right? And at
Yeah.
the time, he was like the big thing with the SKE, and he ran SKE all the time. I was like, man, that kid's like runs 3 classes. He's like a stud. And like Kyle Larson, Kenny Allen,
Yeah.
they all ran up here. So like I always saw those guys running, and like at the time, I didn't know that like Kyle Larson was going to turn out to be a NASCAR champion.
I don't think anybody did at that time.
Right. And like, so, and then we went down to Red Bluff that one time, got smoked, right? And I was like, man, this place is tough. But like, I liked it. So, we just we weren't that early on. Roseburg was so competitive for us that like we
it's way
never
closer.
ventured in and now that I look back at it, I wish that like we would have been able to do that. We ran the Expo.
Yeah.
I believe that's one of the first years you raced go-karts.
Wait, you guys ran out at the Medford Expo
Yes.
indoors?
Yes, you didn't do that?
I never did that.
Oh,
no.
okay. So I ran that in a box stop.
I wish that was still
What
a
was
thing,
that
dude.
like?
That would be sick.
What was that
wild.
like? For a lot of people that don't know, that's an indoor track in Medford.
And explain to just it's a big arena.
Yeah, so it's it's our horse arena here in town, right? At the expo there. So I remember
Equestrian Center, yeah.
Yep, the Equestrian Center. So I remember they used to put on races and it was pretty cool. It brought a lot of cars. Like Stephanie Rotarius won a lot of races at the Medford Expo. And I was like, I remember she always used to be the one that was always winning, and Seth Nunez always won a lot. And those guys always came up here. You didn't have the big hitters that I remember, like the Tyler Reddicks and the Kyle Larsons and stuff that went to the Expo. They always, because they ran Red Bluff in the wintertime.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So I remember them only in the summertime. They'd come run Friday nights in Medford, and I believe Saturday nights at Cycle Land.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
That's what Rico said they used to do.
Yep,
Yeah,
Rico. Yep,
I know
Rico
all
too.
the
I
guys.
remember
Even
that.
back then, I think like the truck shop, like I know Jake Park. I
Yep,
think
Jake
Park
Park.
told me he would run for points at Medford, then hit Cycland, and then they also during the right years they were doing the QRC All-Star Tour, so they were traveling everywhere.
Did you ever take part in that?
The
All-Star
No,
Tour?
so I was in
You're probably before.
125s, I think,
Okay.
when the All-Star Tour was a thing. So I never got a chance to run it. I just remember Richard Weststein used to be a stud in the All-Star Tour, if I remember right.
Richard Weststein, guys, is he actually hasn't ran as much recently.
He hasn't ran as much. He actually used to pit by me, for my
One of the
final
coolest guys in the
seasons.
pit
Yeah,
area.
It's literally him and his wife. He's got 2 cars completely built all the time. No stand, but he's got 2 wood blocks that he puts them on in the pits at RBO. And he just goes from cart to cart.
And he just shows up and he's a gasser. And he's still at the end of his, if he, I don't know if he officially has
he hasn't
retired,
came back. I'm not
but,
sure.
he still was almost winning heat races here and there, having a main event appearances in the open class. So a guy that has been doing it for a very, very long time. So you start moving up through the ranks, beginner to box stocks, the normal cycle.
Yes.
What was your first open race? Do you remember what that was like?
First open race was in Medford.
Gotcha.
Horrible. Bought a...
Do you know what year that was, roughly?
2011.
Was the track still...
No,
so
they just...
They took it away from being the
triangle. I think they
Yeah.
got rid of the Pocono Raceway. So, which the Pocono Raceway put on some races.
It was,
now that I look back at it, I've seen pictures and stuff of that.
when
I was in 250s.
Yeah.
Dude, I literally ran the no wall that wasn't there. I just ran the top, and people ran the top. It was a good
My
race.
first full year of racing, I think, was that track you're talking about. And then eventually at one point, I don't know the whole chain of events and who the owners were, but a couple years down the line, my dad got involved with helping with the track. But I know they definitely changed it, reconfigured the whole thing.
Yep.
I don't know what the idea was behind it because I was so young.
That's when Dave and Rick Rapp took over.
Gotcha.
So I ran. That was the first year that I ran, and that was opens. First year I ran opens, and I remember I bought this open from some guy in California for $1,500.
The engine.
The 500.
Oh, okay, the motor.
Complete motor.
That's a steal.
Well, you thought so until I got home and found out I was blown up.
Wait, was it a Honda or a Cowie?
It was a Honda.
Okay, I know Cowies back then.
Yeah, so actually I still have the bottom end because obviously bottom ends are hard to get these days. So I bought that CR500. We ran that, and actually I went to Red Bluff, went to the Nationals. First year in an open. Got smoked.
Oh, boy.
Horrible. E-main. I think I was in the E. I was in the slow dash. It was bad. My car was ugly. It was blue with red and yellow.
Red numbers. I think I remember that car.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Terrible, dude. It was so bad.
This is actually so funny that you say this. I could be 100% wrong, but we pitted on the corner. Anybody listening is not going to know. But if you know where we pit, I swear I have this vision because, like I said, we were buddies, but you were pitted out in the back 40, right? Maybe?
Yep, I always pitted away from everyone.
Vision. I swear I remember the only time I seen you at that Nationals was you were getting towed back to your pit by a quad because your front end was absolutely
That
smoked.
probably sounds right. I can't remember if I even finished the E that night.
But anyway, that's all I remember from that.
That's when Nationals used to be a 2-day.
Yeah. Now it's like a week-long excursion, and I'm like, I can't afford
No,
that.
it was literally practice Friday.
Yep.
And main event Saturday. That was it.
Yeah, so you'd practice and hot lap, I think, on
and do your dashes
qualify,
and then
do
run
the fast and slow dash.
And you do all your heats and then do everything in one day.
Yep.
Saturday.
That was
I
neat.
love that.
Yeah,
I
and that
personally love that.
And that was my first year running opens, and we just we actually got really good at Medford. We started to get better, and then I remember the last year we ran Medford. I think we ran for points, and we won the points, and that was in 2015. 13, I think. And that was the last year we ran Medford full time. And up until then, I'd never missed a Medford race. I don't think I missed a Medford or a Roseburg race up until then. And then we started to venture out, and Daryl Fogarty, because they used to live in Medford, right? And they were good friends. They're good friends of ours, so they had finally moved down to Red Bluff, and Sean and them were like, you got to come to Cycleland. Cycleland's sick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd never even heard of Cycleland Speedway at the time, right? So, okay, well, we're going to go down there and try it. I remember watching qualifying at Cycleland, right? We qualified. Oh, I ran OIs.
OI, yeah.
I ran.
Is this open or OI?
Yeah, I ran OI.
Which was probably a good choice. Just,
it was at the first time. Everyone was like, oh, run opens. And I was like, dude, I'm not ready for that. I'm like, I was still kind of young. I was still like 14, I think, at the time. And I remember, so embarrassing. I'm surprised. Like, if there's a Mullet Media now, it would have been on there. Like, it was so embarrassing. So I started like 6th in my heat race, right? And I got a good start, actually, somehow. And everyone's like, you have to run the top. Well, in Medford and stuff, I'd never been around the top of a speedway like that before, where you run the fence at Cycleland,
Yeah.
Wide open.
Wide open on the fence.
Yeah.
That's
I tried to
scary.
cheat that deal. Dude, I was so slow finally, right? And on a restart, I finally got a good restart. I went to go slide this dude, right? I just totally backed it in there. I just didn't drive it straight, how you do, how you slide at Cycleland. I didn't do that. I tried to back it in there, spun, coasted all the way to the fence. That was the closest I got to the fence the whole night. So then we went on from there, and that's actually after that. We kind of got turned on to Ryan Foster.
Yeah.
And bought an RFC. And after that, we'd switched. That's when we had made our change. Because, I had a QRC standard offset car. And it was good. I won a lot of races at Roseburg with that car. I got all the trophies still at home, of winning races there. And it was cool and everything. But at the time, I just felt like I got behind the wheel of one of them RFCs. And I was like, man, this thing just doesn't spin out.
Well, and RFCs at one point had a really impressive product.
They
Bennett
really
at one point got an RFC. I remember in the era
The
of
wrong time, sadly.
But in the era of when Wheeler was driving the 1W
And Copeland was driving the 21.
Copeland was in a car. Ryan was in the 41. I
That
swear
was the golden.
that was almost the golden era of Outlaw Karts in a way. I feel like, and maybe we'll look
that
back
was
from at this era, But anyway,
Well, like you said, that's when QRC's house drivers versus RFC. You knew everything.
there was QRC
Pistol
versus
Pete was a
yes.
house driver,
There was-
and I think Sean Becker
Well, and then
was a house
and then at the
driver.
end of that era, Logan was getting involved. So
Just kidding, yeah.
Keith
so
Boom was hit or miss
Keith
off
Boom.
and on.
yeah,
You're right,
So
Keith
we had all these. I guess at the time, and also maybe since I was younger and Bennett, you were a little younger too. For us, we're looking up at these people these are the guys.
Yeah, and
these are the
and Tanner
guys.
Thorson.
Yeah,
It's funny. Well, it's funny you say that. I remember literally. So me and Tanner would get done running. I would get done running either a 250 or
I'd be
my
like box stock.
Yeah, and we'd get done. We're like, dude, okay, we're playing video games, but the moment that Open A gets ready to roll,
We're
out,
going over there.
We would go hot pit entrance wall.
Oh.
Me and you closest to the track every Open main event.
Go
and we'd
to.
get pumped.
We would literally we were so excited to watch the Open A main event every week and even heat races because we
Right,
could
yeah.
run our heats, and then if we both transferred to the A, we got 4 hours on our hands.
Yeah.
Why all those guys have to go run, which we never thought we'd be in an E main. Looking at all these guys
Yeah.
in the E main or C main on a weekly night, and sure enough, you get to Opens and you realize. But yeah, it was crazy. That was you look, like I said, I think we'll look back, and every era it takes time for you to look back and realize what it was. But man, then I remember just looking at these guys like, this is incredible.
Yeah, well, and that's funny you mentioned that. So, back in those days, right, I always ran Salem. It might have been a little
Which
after
Salem had a
that.
pretty good
So, yeah, so I
weekly
actually
racing, too.
remember.
Did
when-
you? Not to interrupt you, is that when Salem used to run the Hornets and stuff in there as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they run
yeah.
a 4-cylinder.
Yeah,
in
dude.
there.
So they used to run. So, dude, it used to be 10 classes, but they got that show done.
Yeah.
Really?
Dude, I remember literally they would give us an extra $100 or $200 if the Open 500s could go the whole race without a yellow.
Wow.
And they had B mains every night.
And mind you, Salem, guys, is probably about the size of Cycleland, and it's indoors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe a little smaller, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh no, it's definitely the size of Cycleland all day. I bet.
But it's flat.
It's huge. You are flying. I ran one open race there, and you're probably doing 70 miles an hour in hot laps.
I think if you can go on YouTube, you can look up easily Outlaw Karts in there, Hornets, dwarf cars, micros.
If that place had banking, it might be the coolest outlaw kart track we've ever seen.
Did they run midgets in there at
Yep.
one point?
They run midgets, they run micros.
Dude, they ran
everything.
it was micros. Yeah, micro racing was good there.
Yeah.
It was wild, dude.
I know all the dwarf cars pushed like a dump truck.
Yeah.
Like it was just not.
Yeah, it wasn't a dwarf car track,
Yeah.
but I remember going there. Oh, and then they raced flat track bikes.
Oh yeah.
That's
They
kind of
ripped
what's
the
taking
bikes
it
in
over
there.
now.
Yeah, so then and I remember running all that, and then we did that for a long time, and then the Cage Cup,
Yeah, Cage Cup was huge.
Yeah.
Triple Crown.
Triple Crown, that was a
So
huge
I
event.
remember that was kind of like the turning point in like my outlaw kart career, right? Because I'd never been around guys like that before, like the Colby Copelands, the Ryan Fosters, the Mike Wheelers, the actual wheelmen that we see today.
Yeah.
I'd never been around those guys until Triple Crown. I always ran like the normal weekly shows in Medford and Roseburg, and like the baddest guys that I had ever raced against was like Tommy Brown, and guys like that.
Still like guys that were really
or
good.
Kyle Alberding, ran go-karts a lot in Roseburg, and like me and him had some. No, we weren't friends then. Let's just say that. So, and I remember like showing up to Triple Crown, the first one in Medford, when it was like Medford.
This is 3 nights of action in a row, which is like for kart racing
was
it
awesome.
was mega big.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. And I remember we ran 4th the first night at Triple Crown.
In open.
And I was stoked, right? I think.
No, that year, dude, I think, was that the year that Pistol Pete swept all 3 nights?
Yep.
So
Dude,
there was like Pete
okay.
Johnson. I don't even remember the guys that ran second because Pete was so good. He literally made it look easy. I remember.
Mikey and Ryan.
Yeah, Wheeler
and
the Foster.
Copeland.
So think of it this way: you have QRC house carts. I remember Caldwell had a huge trailer full of cars, like Tartar and all those guys. I
But
think
he was just a weapon at that time.
Yeah, and then
Was that with the Gunsmoke?
Yeah, dude. When he had the yellow numbers. Oh man, when you saw that car, you knew you were in for a treat.
86J with the shooter on the side.
But think about Pistol Pete, one of the greatest to ever drive an outlaw cart. Literally came up Triple Crown. I think there was I want to say there was 50 opens maybe.
Dude, there was a lot.
There was a ton. The most any of these
there
tracks
was a
had
D-main
ever
at least.
seen.
Yeah.
And this guy literally made it look easy every night.
He ran the B. I remember him running the B main, and I remember watching the B main. I was like, man, he is ripping the top. And I'm like, I've never seen anyone do that here. Literally, I'm in the main. I'm cruising along in 4th place, right? I'm just minding my own business. I'm like, dude, we're sitting good. Like, we got a real chance here, like being a front running car. I felt like I'd thrown out the bone anchor, dude. He literally blew my door off on the top, and I was like, where did this guy even come from? Like, where did he even, and he just went on to roll by everyone on the top. I get out after the race. I go over and I, go to look at his car, and I'd honestly never met Pete before, and I was like, hey, man, congratulations. That's, cool. And he's like, yeah. And I remember looking at his right front. He had a slick on there from a box top.
Yeah. He used to run that at Red Bluff. He would try the slick.
Literally blew our doors off. I'd never been past that fast in Medford my whole life. He literally was just I saw the white nose going into 1. I was like, oh, that's weird. And by 2, he was 2 cars in front of me. I was like,
that's crazy.
What?
Like I said, this was because I was in box stocks or beginners at the time. So
you definitely weren't even a thing.
No, so I was not a race car driver.
This was right around when Pete had his graphics company too.
Yeah, because he had he had the 98 car with the dirt bike on the roof.
The dirt bike,
yeah.
And
so,
dude, I remember he would rip the top at Red Bluff, full clutch, whole corner. You'd think the motor's gone in 2 laps, just burnt down off the top, dude.
Yeah, and I remember he went on to win all 3 nights, but that was a big thing for me. Me and my dad really, that woke us up. What we race on a weekly show, we were really good and we won a lot of races, but that's nothing compared to what these guys bring to the table. It's new tires every night. It's this, it's that,
Yeah.
So, and then that's when we started going to Cycleland, right? And so I always stayed away from Red Bluff because the few times I'd been there, and Fast Four Media wasn't a thing.
Yeah, Fast Four wasn't.
I had just seen everyone getting wore out.
It's Carnage Fest. I'll agree. There was a couple years there where it was so unpoliced. Carnage Fest, guaranteed fight after the main
Yeah,
event.
there was
Guaranteed.
definitely
Yeah,
an era, like you watch the highlights, especially when Fast Forward first started filming, which like they weren't doing anything, they just happened to be capturing the chaos. But like it was bad. Like you look back now, and when that's why when I say people talk about Red Bluff's this, nowadays, like no, you need to go watch that.
Go
like,
watch.
Red Bluff now is one that like so much cleaner, better policed. Anyway, the list goes on.
That's literally why I never ran there, was because of that.
And I don't blame actually people for that.
But I ran Roseburg. Like, what was the difference? So then once I got my RFC, right? I bought that RFC, and we had been running a lot of Cycleland, just trying to get better. That's all our goal was to get better there. You know, we'd been trying different engine packages and stuff. And finally, it took like 2 years to get good there. Because that place is not...
It's really hard.
It's not a place you just show up and you're like, oh, hey. And honestly, I got hooked up with Tanner Carrick and Dave. And obviously, they'd won a ton of races there. Tanner's made a pretty good name for himself these days. So, you know, I got hooked up with Dave, and like, I just started like asking questions like, hey man, you know, I'm struggling. Like, you know, what do you know? And he started telling me info. And actually, I remember this night, we start on the pole of Maine in Cycleland.
Open A main event. I'm leading the race. And I had actually called Tanner. Tanner, they were doing midget stuff back east. I text Tanner. I was like, hey man, I just got a couple questions. Like, I'm starting on the pole tonight. I really don't want to mess this deal up. Like, what can you tell me? And he's like, oh, you know, and he was actually watching it on TV. He was watching it on Fast Forward. Mm-hmm. I remember leading that main event, and I'm running the top, dude. And I mean, my dad kept doing the hand thing. Like, I was super far out, and we got to restart. And I remember on the receiver, I think, what's her name? Becky, right? Yeah.
She had said 2186J.
Like, dude.
Oh.
I'm like, here we go.
That's Jesse Caldwell, boys and girls.
I'm like, okay, here we go. So I got a good restart. It didn't matter. He slid me in one, drove away from me like I was parked. And I was like, man, that kid is fast. And so, like, dude, we ran second, right? I'm stoked, right? Like, we're going to put it on the podium. And I knew, like, the laps were winding down, right? Like, it had to have been, like, 3 or 4 to go. Mm-hmm. Dude, I think it was, like, 2 laps left. My engine blows up running second place. Oh. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that had been, like, we had worked so hard for that, you know, to be good there. Because, like, being good there is so tough.
Oh, Cycling is the Red Bluff. It's the
Red
toughest
Bluff
summer
outdoor.
outdoor.
It's the outdoor Red Bluff, yeah. And, like, you know, the track there changes. And that's one thing about there that I feel like is even different from Red Bluff. Like, with the weather, because there's no climate control. You know, you're not in indoor. Like, Red Bluff does change.
The sun and the shade.
It's not
and
like
the wind.
Cycleland. Like, Cycleland, you know, some days you show up and the track's dry in qualifying. Cycleland.
Yeah.
Some days you show up and it's greasy. So you have to be able to adjust to that. And so that's where we really, like, stepped up our game. And once we started running there full seasons all the time, you know, for the most part, we would run like 15 races a year there.
Yeah.
And try, you know, just to go down there as much as we could. Dude, I'll tell you what, after doing that every weekend for a long time, that was brutal.
Oh, yeah, and that's
one of the
different
most
than Red Bluff
valuable
because,
things.
I mean, it's like 110 degrees
110.
like most weekends.
But
Dude, they also run 20-something races.
Yeah.
And
Every weekend.
I don't know if you've ever felt this, but the mosquitoes down in Cycleland. Oh, my God, dude.
I stayed there one night. Big mistake.
Oh, no.
Horrible.
This has
Big
got to be a
mistake.
great story.
Yeah.
Terrible mistake. Mosquitoes everywhere. It was the worst decision ever because we were going to Dixon the next day for Triple Crown.
Yeah, another year of Triple Crown.
Another year of Triple Crown. And actually, I think that was one of our best runs. We'd finished like 8th in the main.
Which is really good because
Cycleland.
that year that Triple Crown went there, I think, I mean, there was more cars than the year before. There was like 70
There was a ton,
opens.
right? And Richie Rich and the Tin Pimp
Yeah, there was all sorts
paid
of guys.
the Dixon race like $5,000 or something at the end of that deal.
Yeah,
I remember that.
A lot of money
and that
up for
was
grabs.
nuts. Like, so yeah, and then like after that, then we'd ran Roseburg and Salem in the wintertime because we stayed away from Red Bluff. We did really good. We won a lot of races. Salem, we always struggled at. We always ran really good. Like, we'd lead so many laps and just bad luck. And finally, like, once you'd broke the bad luck, then we ended up just started winning all the time there. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then, you know, that was kind of when our deal really started to take off, our program. And me as a driver, I got a lot better after we'd started running Cycleland.
Yeah.
And that's when, then I remember Topher came around. We went to Topher the first year and we ran like the B main or something.
Which is up in Idaho.
Yep.
Topher Classic.
Yep. And we'd ran the B main. And like, that was like, this place is cool. Like, I'd never been to OMC before. And then Cage Cup was a thing. And the first year we ran the Cage Cup, I think we ran the B main somewhere in the mid pack. And then I was like, okay, went back to Cycleland that next year to grind and just get better, and like that was our goal, was to get better. And I remember that was a good year for us.
I was going to say, did you ever go to Missoula?
I did not.
No.
That's one. Actually, there was.
I never got the opportunity to race there, but I'm so thankful I got to go with Tanner that one year. Last year,
actually,
possibly the coolest outlaw kart track I've ever been
literally,
to.
I wanted to go there so bad. Like, and I'm so bummed that I never ever made a point to go there.
Yeah.
So then like we always ran all that stuff, and then we just started running Cycleland so much and just trying to get better. And once we got it, kind of like where we were decent, like we were putting in the show every night. And honestly, like there were some nights we were top 5 cars, and some nights we just
You even went to North Carolina one year.
I did.
Yeah. So I mean, you.
And honestly, that was where we figured out stock motors don't win races.
Yeah. No kidding. That's a place.
Literally,
where
I ran probably in practice. I was 40th quick. I remember this. I was 2 spots behind Brian McGann because he was like my only friend. So like once you started running Cycleland, right? Like at first I had only known the RFC group, which was Rudger Worley, Chris Renaud, and those guys. And then
Mahoney.
Ken Mahoney, yep. So Mahoney. Like at first those were like my only guys that I knew down there, right? And then I got hooked in with McGann's. I'd met them and I'm like, cool, got to really know them. And Brian was like, became pretty good buddies and like still are. Like me and Brian are pretty good racing friends, and Mallory and them and then Jesse.
Yeah.
And we met Jesse through Bartlett, which turned out to, and honestly, Jesse is whatever Jesse is, but Jesse's a cool kid. And like I've honestly ran great races with Jesse. He's never done me wrong.
Exactly. I always tell people, like, regardless, like Jesse, I feel like, along with like a handful of other guys, like racing with them has truly made me a big part of the driver that I am today. Cause like losing races to them, they made it look easy, it felt like in the moment, but like they literally were like taking you to school. And then like, after a couple times of that, it's like, all right, I can pretty much race with anyone. Yep. I can race with anyone.
Yeah, and I remember like getting to know Jesse then and like meeting him. And the only time I've ever been mad at Jesse was last year at the Burst Bowl Ring Showdown. We're both in the transfer spot in the C.
Oh, no.
And he short slides me.
Oh, yeah.
And cost me the transfer spot. And I was like, dude, I literally was because like I was 4th. He was 3rd, so I'd always get that good restart.
Yeah.
Well, I just knew better than to force the issue, so I just let him in.
Yeah.
He didn't need to short slide me on the last restart, and he just did it anyways. And I was like, dude, like, why didn't you do that like 3 restarts ago and get me back to 6th?
You know what Jesse's typical reply was?
Yeah, really, yeah. He was like, and I'm like, dude, you totally screwed me there on the end of that deal. So like, but yeah, and I mean, and then I got to know them. And then that's when we started running a lot of the RFC stuff down in California. And then that's when we went to OMC and ran the Topher Classic the 3rd time. When we went the 3rd time, we'd ran a full season at Cycleland and been like top 5s, been good. We'd been good. I'd been happy. The car was working. So that RFC that I had was the first. So I only owned 2 RFC cars. Think about that. You remember how long I ran an RFC for?
Yeah, dude. I remember
on 2 cars.
Hang on, this is an awesome story. I was at Cycleland. This might have been 2.5, 3 years ago. I don't know. I remember I was in your pit, and maybe this is not the same chassis, but I remember like you weren't sure what to do. Were you wanting to get a QRC or an LPR? Was it a?
Oh, that was when I was QRC.
I don't remember what the chassis was,
RFC,
but just to like an example, I remember like you're like walking around pacing, like talking to people on the phone, like because you're about to order a new frame.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude, like how many shows this thing got on? He's like, I think like the last like 4 seasons or something. Like you threw out some number. I was like, yeah, it might be time for a new frame, man. I think
so I did a tally on my first RFC. It had 137 nights on it.
That's getting some nights out.
That's a frame you hang up in
a way.
shop.
If
the last night it had was the Outlaw Kart Showcase.
Yeah,
I'd hang that one up in the shop.
And we made the show. Qualified like 4th quick.
Yeah, didn't you start on the front?
Started 2nd row.
Yeah,
and got wore out by Kyle Larson.
Were your cage receivers a little worn down on that frame?
Oh yeah, we put a few on.
Well, you probably obviously we're putting newer components on it, but also I kind of believe in a way like. I mean, sometimes if you have a good frame, if there's nothing wrong with it, keep putting new components
on it. Dude, literally,
I
just kept telling Eli, just straighten it.
Keep putting new parts on it.
It worked so well. And then, like, he added that bar thing. I remember they always used to do that clamp-on bar. Dude, when we put that in at Cycleland, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
That literally made that car so much better because it stiffened up that right front, dude, and that thing would just haul her off in there. And so then like we started doing that, and you know, we got better, and that's when I bought a QRC. The main reason I bought a QRC, Shane Graham's customer service.
Really?
Not gonna lie, before then, like I don't remember who manned the trailer before, but like I never got like any help. I never felt like, and that was before I think Jimmy's time, really, like right around Jimmy's time.
Gotcha.
Like right before Jimmy had just bought it. And I remember Shane Graham manned the trailer, and he was working it, and like I'd always go up there to buy parts, and he was like super nice to me, right? Like, yeah, crazy, right? Shane Graham, like, you know, like that's the reason you bought a QRC, but like
That's interesting.
That guy
that's cool.
was super nice, super helpful, and even like though I didn't have a QRC, he would like tell me like some setup things, like, hey man, you should try this, because like we were just trying to get better there. Like honestly, like at that time, like that's all we wanted to do. I just wanted to be competitive at Cycleland.
Yeah.
Like to be able to hang with those guys, and like he was helping me out a little bit, and so that's what made me buy. I actually did buy a QRC. I went back and bought an A51.
That's cool. So I mean, kind of going through like all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a crazy road, because you went through some different, you know, trying a lot of different stuff along the
And
way.
actually, that was I bought the A51. And we put it together, but I still had my RFC, and I ran my RFC at Topher that year. And that was the year that we went quick time at Topher. We won both my heat races, and we started on the pole of that deal. That's when the infield slider.
Is that a 55-lap race?
That was the 55-lapper.
55-lap race. It probably paid like through.
And it was $2,500 to win.
Yeah,
And
one of the
that
biggest
was-
kart races at the time.
Dude, at the time, right, like I went into that deal with zero expectations. Like honestly, I just told myself, like, you know, we'd been at Cycleland all year. Like we had hung with everyone that it was in that pit all year long. Like we were good enough to beat these guys here. Dude, and I just remember going out for qualifying, and like we get ready to roll out, and I had a brand new design. I had that red, white, and blue design.
Yeah.
It was brand new. First race was OMC. Never been on the car. And I just remember rolling out for qualifying, and I went last group. And I laid down a lap, and I was like, man, this car is on kill. Like, I bet we were top 5 qualifier, dude.
Yeah.
I remember pulling off, dude. My dad's like pumped. He's like hitting the wing. And like, I'm like, wow, like I didn't think it was like that good, dude. And I remember we were like 2/10 quicker than anybody else. And I was
Really?
like, holy cow, like we're dialed this weekend.
Yeah.
And like that whole weekend was just like, that was one of our most complete Outlaw Kart weekends ever. Like for us as a team, like going there, that kind of level, you know, that was people all over the United States.
And it turned into an iconic, like kind of like one of the more iconic races. I think that was that the last Over Classic?
Yep, that was
last
Trophy-
Over Classic.
The trophy was sick. If anyone doesn't know, it's the wing, right?
Yeah, it's the wing,
Yeah.
dude.
And I just remember, like, because I remember watching it, because we didn't go that year, and we were sitting in the office, and we're watching, and I'm like, dude, Johnny is ripping.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
And the 3 main guys, well, there was 4 actually, because once you threw McGann in the picture, it was
McGann got 4th.
Dude, this place is black slick. It's black slick. There's no grip out there. Johnny's up front. Mike Wheeler, who at the time Mike was, you know, really good. Mikey's still an incredible talent. You also had Kyle Hosfeld, which he was from up there, so he was really good. And then Brian McGann. So these 4 all race long. You guys were going at it.
Yeah, and I just remember like just how cool that event was, right? Like at the time, that was like one of the, I'd say,
Premier.
top of the line go-kart races in the country.
Yeah.
And it was one of the top of the line times of go-kart racing, because now we don't have that many big races.
We don't have as many big races,
Yeah.
Then
It's
you
sad.
had Missoula, you had the Cage Cup, you had Triple Crown, you had
Nationals.
Nationals.
Speed 51, North Carolina.
Speed 51. So I just remember, right, like running that race in OMC, and I remember the first heat race, won it, lapped like half the field. Like our car was, I don't know what my dad did before we left for OMC. He hit it right on the head. Second heat race, I finished, I didn't win it actually. I finished second. And I was pissed because like Mikey won his, Kyle Hosfeld won his. Mine went green to checkers though. So the guy that, you know, started up front, just, I remember like he just, and
got it.
And I got all them. Well, and at the time I didn't understand the format quite well enough. They didn't say passing points were a thing. So I'm like thinking, dude, we're like 5th overall now. Like I'm telling my dad, I'm like, this sucks. Like we just ruined that whole dude. Come to find out, I was still first because we had passing points. Like, so when it had all shooken out, like, you know, so I was like, okay, cool. Or we were second. Mikey was actually 1 point ahead of me. Well, he had the tiebreaker because he won both the heats or something like that. And I remember going in the pole shuffle. Never been in a pole shuffle in my life. I remember sitting in the infield, right? And I was second overall in points. Worst I could start is second or third, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching the cars, and I was just trying to understand the pole shuffle. I'd never seen one. Like, I don't even think really pole shuffles were even a thing then.
And they're not super exciting sometimes.
Yeah, and Topher's really was like the first. I don't think I'd ever seen a pole shuffle till Topher Classic started. Like, that's kind of when the pole shuffle, like, if I ever remember.
For kart racing,
For kart racing, yeah. I remember watching these guys go, and Brian McGahan, those guys just go. And I remember Kyle Hosfield went against Brian McGahan, and it was either Brian McGahan or Brandon LaChance, one of them. And I remember going and just watching that race, and I was like, man, this is going to be tough. Like, I'm just looking at the talent that I'm up against, and like, I'm just like, man, this is going to be a tough night. And I remember beating Kyle, and I beat him by like a bumper, I think, if I remember right. Or maybe I slid him on the last corner. And I remember Mikey rolled out there. And I was like, you know what? It's 2 laps for the pole. It's like, I'm going to throw everything I got to beat the 1W. Like, that was like a big thing, right? Like,
Well,
if you
it's
especially
the
when
confidence going into it too.
Especially like when you're up, like we've talked about at that time, like these guys are the face of Outlaw
if you knock
Karts.
Mike Wheeler off the pole, I mean, huge.
Yeah,
I'm not
that
sure
was
if it was
huge, right?
before or after, but like you got to think Mike Wheeler at the time, he had just won, or at least in the previous years, he had won just about every big race.
Oh, yeah.
Red Bluff Outlaw Championship, Indy Indoors. Like at the time, this is the guy.
He was the
this
guy.
is the guy.
Yeah, so, and I remember we took the green, and he had chased me all the way up to the marbles. I didn't know at the time, like, that was the move. Like, he chased me all the way up to the marbles. I remember I never lifted. I dropped the hammer, and he cleared me, and I straight lined through the infield. I mean, that video is probably still on Fast Forward Media. It has to be somewhere.
I wish, yeah, dude.
I literally hung it left, and he went to go run the bottom, and I just straight left through the infield, and all I was thinking was, if I can pull this off to where I pull up in front of him, and he just hits me right in the bumper, like, it'll just launch me.
He'll be flying.
And I'll be in the lead. Dude, and the video, I mean,
I'm sure he got
nuts.
scared to death when
He said he was so scared because he had never, like, that had never happened to him before. Like, when does that ever?
Well, when does someone ever go through the infield?
Yeah, and like, well, I was expecting him to run the top, so just when I saw him turn, I was already committed. Like, there was no way I was stopping. Like, so I'm just like, well, the infield looks pretty nice, so
Here we go.
That's where we're going. So, and the infield was luckily flat enough, and like the car got all jacked up, and like he missed my bumper. Like, it almost worked. Like, I was almost to look like a genius. And I just remember after the race, after that pole shove, I ended up second, whatever. I remember Ron Starr came up to me, and he's like, man, that worked in a video game, didn't it? But it didn't in real life.
No
and I was
kidding.
like, no, it didn't. And then I remember we went on to lead that deal. And man, I really gave that was one of the first, I went home that night after that, and like, yeah, we were stoked. We ended up podium at Topher Classic. Like, but I remember
close.
going home, and just the whole ride home, I just kept thinking to myself how I gave that race away, because I did. I remember I was leading, I was rolling the bottom, and every time I watched the fast forward version of it, I just remember we were dominating early, but the top got better because Kyle and Mike just kept working it. Me and my dad, we didn't have that communication. We hadn't progressed that far yet. We were still just learning the 500 stuff to be good enough to run with the big dogs, let alone communicate that, hey, the top is better.
Yeah.
Move up.
Yeah.
Wayne hadn't told me that at the half. Like, and
or that there's even any guys up there.
the
Like,
guys were running
hey,
the
maybe
top.
the guy in second is, running about
running
2
the
lanes
top.
up.
And I remember it was like 32,
And
35 laps in.
Those races are long too. Like, it's a lot of racing. Like, it's easy for
55
things.
laps in a go-kart, so long.
Things change, and then you have halfway break. Like, and you have to make moves strategically because at the halfway break, you need to be able to talk and figure things out and have another game plan.
And honestly, our car was on kill. Like, it really was. And like, now that I am the driver that I am now, and I've learned from that, I could feel the car getting loose coming on off exit. I never changed. I just was like, man, if no one's passing me,
Why change it?
Working, yeah.
but then it was too late.
Did you have like a wing slide? Did you ever grab any wing?
Yeah, I actually did. I moved the wing all the way back to the trunk.
That's good.
And it did help a little bit for a few laps, but then it was just going away so bad. And I just remember, like, when Kyle showed me a nose on the top, and I was like, it's now or never. And I thought, you know what? I can beat him on the bottom. And I didn't. He just railroaded me the next lap. And And that was when, and then I got put in traffic, and then Mikey got by me late in the race in lap traffic. And I just remember the whole way home, I just thought, man, I gave that deal away.
That's, I 100% relate to that, because I know that feeling of like, you know, there's a point I think we all reach where it's like you rely on your dad or whoever it is telling you where to go. Yeah. But at the same time, sometimes when they tell you where to go, it's the wrong call.
Correct.
Yeah, so they can't see what you can see.
And what you're talking about there is I know the exact moment in my career that I figured out it's up to me. I can't keep relying on people. I need to just know where to go. And I know that it was literally the slow dash at Nationals I was leading, and Brandon LaChance was on the bottom. And he's nosing me, but I'm rolling him. I am rolling him on top, and everyone's like, no, go to the bottom because Brandon's down there. Go to the bottom. Right around me on top. So I'm like, I'm done with it. It's cool that you point that out, because I don't know, Tanner, if you know yours, but it's that point in your career you're like, I am the racer. I need to make those calls.
Yeah, you got to make those calls for yourself.
I think, actually, I feel like it's really after so many years, it's about within the last couple, I finally figured out, like, sometimes it's better to just run your race and then don't dictate off what other people are doing. But you also have to find the mixture or the middle ground of like, hey, maybe it does sound like there's a car like right behind my right rear. Like maybe that means something or whatever. You know, you can't let too many things change what you're doing, but you got to like really find the middle ground. Yeah. Whereas like, you know, obviously as you become more experienced, you know, maybe it's like, hey, maybe I should go rip the top, or maybe when the yellow comes out, I need to go and rip the top as the yellow's coming out and try stuff and figure things out.
Yeah. And then so like I learned from that, right? Like I took that experience to heart. Like I was like, okay, I gotta, you know, and then I went home, did some research. We raced Salem all winter, right? The next big race was Cage Cup. And I remember showing up to Cage Cup and we qualified 5th. That was when there was like, I think there was like 82 opens.
It's crazy.
They're probably only taking like 20 to the show.
Wow. Like qualifying took like one day, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And I remember we qualified 5th, and I was like on cloud 9. I'm like, dude, we finally like we're
clicking.
Yeah, there's, you know, when we show up somewhere, we're like a threat. Like I'm like, this is sick. Like we're finally a threat everywhere we go. And so I remember qualifying 5th, winning the heat race. That format was different though, so you didn't run like a second heat race. And we were 2nd overall in the points because you started last in your heat race on that deal.
Gotcha.
And went forward. And then they put you in like a scramble. So it was weird. Like they take all these cars, put them in a scramble, kind of like a Chili Bowl deal, where like you run like a scramble deal, and then that lines you up for the main. And we won the scramble deal. So we'd won everything at the time, and the only other car that had won everything was Mike Wheeler.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, oh man. Well, he had qualified 2nd, and we were 5th. So line me up, me and him on the front row. And it was just a dash deal, so we just ran 1 and 2. And so we had been, I remember we were getting ready to roll out for the main of that deal, and I thought to myself, like, this is it. This is where I make up for my mistake in Topher. Like, this is going to be the race. Like, and literally, dude, I go to roll out we're rolling up to staging. I just fired the car. They're getting everyone lined up, and they didn't do like an opening, or no, they did. They did an opening ceremony deal. And everyone was just getting ready to roll on, and I literally like went to go pump the brake.
Oh.
And the plungers had pushed out, and I lost all my brake fluid. While they were doing the opening ceremonies, my dad was pulling calipers off. He literally bought a brand new caliper out of Schofield Karts and Parts just for this deal. Bolted it up there, got it all ready, tried to bleed it, but like at the time, like we weren't as good bleeding the stuff. You know, it's like now you can. It's so easy now to do it. We've done it so many million times, but at that time, like when you're in the heat of the moment, like we just never got it done. And like I remember rolling on the track, and 2 laps in, lost brakes. 40 lap main, 2 laps in, lost brakes.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Literally just gone. And like they were literally like Fast 4 was there, I think.
Might have been, yeah.
I think Fast 4 was there. And so they literally had the camera on me during the opening ceremonies behind the car, and like Maddie or the announcer is like talking to me about, you know, hey, like you're about ready to roll on the track. Like you ain't got no brakes. I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to send it. Like I'm going to go for it. I ran that whole race in 2nd place behind Mike Wheeler. One time I tried to like challenge him on a restart because it was like, I can't just run through him. So like I had to pick and choose like We ran lap traffic, no brakes. I got through lap traffic. I muscled my way through. I mean, I did wheel some lap cars to get it because it was like, dude, like I got no brakes. I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to the halfway point and they like came out to like talk to the front top 3. And we were in second. And I just literally like told them, I was like, I have no brakes. Like,
Fill this deal up.
yeah, feel this
Whatever
deal
I
up.
get,
And
yeah.
this is what I get. Like, this is it. Like, and my dad, you know, because you couldn't work on it. Like,
Yeah.
if I was going to the back. And so they're like, so Johnny, like, what do you, and I'm like, honestly, I got no brakes. I'm running this thing without brakes. So it became a big deal. They were like, well, we're going to let him race. And I'm like, I've ran 20 laps with no brakes.
Yeah.
I made it this far. Like, I'm going to run
good.
the rest of it. And I did. And I finished second. Like, but that one was like, I felt like that one really got away from us because like, I felt like that was our chance. And we ended up second. Like, nothing to hang your head about. There was like 80 opens there.
but you're
we
like,
ended up
dude.
second. And I'm like, man, like just, you know, and so ever since then, like, you know, and there hasn't been that many big Outlaw Kart races like
No,
since then.
we talk about it all the time. Like it kind of is sad how the big
Yeah.
races have went away, but I feel like we might be getting to a point,
Where
hopefully,
they're coming back.
where it's coming back.
Yeah.
Everything's on the incline.
I foresee a new era in Oregon go-kart racing.
I
in
agree.
Roseburg.
It's big. Roseburg, we talked about it in the episode that dropped the day we're shooting this. Literally, like, Roseburg is the new big thing, I think,
Yeah.
as far as Oregon kart
Yep.
racing.
And especially like, I mean, what, there was like 50 opens?
Almost 50 at the Winter
47.
Showdown.
The Winter Showdown?
Yeah, and that's only going to
You
get
cherry
bigger.
picked that deal. That's unreal.
I guess.
Unreal.
I mean, just
Like,
out there just
I'm
ripping.
literally watching this video and I'm like, this is not even fun for him. He's just like walloping these guys.
Did have to pass Landon, which was tough.
Oh yeah, well I guess yeah on that deal.
But
yeah,
for sure,
Landon
I
was
mean,
there. So
our
that
stuff
made it a little
was
different.
dialed.
So, well, one quick question while we're on the topic of karts. How tall are you?
6'3".
6'3". I'm 6'3". How do you feel in a cart?
Way better in a sprint car.
Yeah.
100 million times over. I'll get in a go-kart all day long.
Really?
I
That's
ran
crazy.
Dude, my sprint car, it's like
Well, I guess
like you can't see this right now, but
I
let's
sat-
just
His
picture
knees are almost on his shoulders.
Yeah, literally in my shoulders.
So I could function in the cart, right? In
Right.
Tanner's car. I mean, I had no left knee at
Right.
the end of the night. And then I sit in Tanner's sprint car because, you know, we're kicking around the idea of a driver swap. Just, you know, would we have changed anything? I sit in the car and I'm like, dude, my knee's on the frame. If this thing tacos, I'm done. I've got no legs. Like, and I'm like, how in the do I fit in this thing? So I wanted to know your perspective.
Yeah.
You're same height. Like,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, the go-kart's easy. The sprint car sucks. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, the sprint car sucks.
You'll,
Go-kart's easy.
you'll
but-
have to climb in the dwarf car because surprisingly, it's comfortable.
Oh,
for me.
really? Yeah. I bet. Yeah, no, the sprint cars are brutal, though. Like, I have the 2-inch taller cage. You know,
Yeah.
I have the tall and the big.
Right.
I don't have the big max, but I have, like, the bigger cage and where they, like, lean it back and
Yeah.
stuff. It ain't enough. Like, it ain't even close.
I just want to know, yeah.
Speaking of sprint cars, okay, so you just ran us through your whole Outlaw Kart career, and there was so much. No,
Yeah, there's a lot there.
There was
That's
so much
awesome.
I did not know. That was so cool, and I love talking about the glory day, or I call it glory days, but that
Yeah.
was the golden era that I watched.
And
growing up.
unfortunately, you weren't a part of it because
Yeah.
you are probably going to go down as the greatest go-kart racer of all time. We can all sit here and sugarcoat this, but it's
We'll see.
like you're young. Like, you're young. You're already the most.
Look at the numbers he's
yeah, I
putting
mean, realistically, like you will go down as probably the
Your
best go-kart
stock
racer
is
of all
very
time.
high right now.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
I mean,
people invest.
like I mean, Ryan Foster is a man. Like, he's a stud in a go-kart, but like you have already won more races at the Red Bluff Outlaws. Not more open races, but more races than him. Like, your day is coming. Like, I mean, if you would have been around in those days, like
It would've
that
been
would have
fun.
been fun for sure.
So speaking of sprint car racing, how did you? So you, I mean, you know, you got into sprint cars. What age? Maybe wait. So you're 24 now, 22.
Yeah, I was 21.
21?
21. So yeah, so
3 years ago.
yeah,
get-
3
you-
years.
you
so
watched-
this will be
This
your
will be your
you know,
fourth
yeah.
year.
we had
you can't count the COVID year because I ran
Right.
4 races.
Yeah,
like,
true. Very
Can't
true.
count.
Sucks.
We had the Southern Oregon Speedway. That's where I grew up watching sprint cars. That's
Yep.
that's all we
Yep.
had, really.
Yep,
You know,
yep, yep.
and unless we traveled anywhere else, but like mainly, like I watched ASCS out there. I watched the Outlaws in 2014. So like that's what racing was to me on a bigger scale. You know, you got into it. You started building up your team. How has that been so far? And I mean, you know, you're just went through your first full season together in 2021.
Yeah.
So I mean, just talk about that experience. You know, sprint cars kind of compared to the kart stuff.
So actually, we almost bought a modified. And I told my dad, I was like, dude, I seen these guys beat panels. I'm like, I'm not into that. Like, honestly, like straight up.
That's funny.
Like, and I got a good buddy, Jeffrey Hudson, runs modifieds. He's actually does very good in modified.
Very talented.
Very talented in modified. And so we're always with them. Like, it's either you or them pretty much that I'm pitted with, right?
Yeah.
every time we go racing with Jeffrey, it doesn't matter if he clean sweeps the night. The next morning at the
still
wash,
hitting panels.
they are literally beating panels out. And I'm like, Wayne, we're not doing that. I cannot handle this. So that's how then sprint car racing came about, you know? And so my dad, oh man, found this sprint car for $1,200. 1994 John Boy.
Oh boy.
What? Oh, is it John Boy?
John Boy.
Complete or roller?
Complete roller.
Yeah.
That's a steal.
Yeah, had a wing on it, old school wing. Everything was old school, right? And so I'm also good friends with the Nunezes, Seth and Randy, and you know they've been doing sprint car racing a
Very
long time.
Yeah,
they're actually coming out of retirement this year. I heard
Non-wing?
Really?
non-wing.
Yeah.
They're gonna go non-wing and 360 racing. Yep.
Oh, that's
so,
cool. That's
so
really
yeah.
cool.
So that should be cool for them. And but anyway, so Randy's a good friend of my dad's, so we had him come over and look at our sprint car. He literally like comes over and he's like looks at it and he's like, "Can I be honest?" We're like, "Yeah." It's like, I would sell all of this and never, ever run this stuff. This is not safe. And I'm like, oh.
What year is this?
This was 2018.
2018. He's got 1997.
I didn't know
Yeah,
about
2018. Yeah. Right?
Car's
yeah.
20 years
Yeah.
old.
Well, we planned on getting a new frame and then
Putting the components on it.
putting the components on it. Well, the components were junk.
Well,
Full
they probably,
box.
who even knows if they would have.
Yeah, full box, dude. Like in the old school hubs in the front. Not like the new ones that you got now.
Yeah.
So that's how then I got I was go-kart racing.
Well, did you run that?
Never.
Never ran.
Never
Good
even
thing
put it
you never
together.
did.
I was go-kart racing Roseburg with Speed City that last year in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we won the championship with them and did really well there. That was the night you beat me in the mellow yellow car. The one of the nights.
Yeah.
Anyways,
ran
and
that year
so
a little bit.
yeah, so we ended up meeting Greg Hamilton. And Greg was like all about go-karts. And like he was actually Winter Showdown, I think.
Yeah, he was. He did run, yeah.
Yeah, and Greg's super nice guy, right?
Very.
Like, he literally was like, hey man, honestly, I have some sprint car stuff. I'll put a sprint car together. You trade me straight across for a race-ready go-kart. You know go-karts. I know sprint cars. We can probably make a deal. I said, okay, cool. I built him a brand new go-kart, brand new LPR, because that's what he wanted. And so we got him all dialed in. I told him, gave him an option, on whatever you want. Built him a wing and everything. I drove all the way to Burlington, Washington, where he lives.
Which is a long ways from Southern Oregon.
It's literally right down. It's where Skagit is.
That's 9 hours,
yeah,
boys and girls.
Drove all the way there. I remember I picked up. So actually, that's how I got hooked on with my sponsor, Rogue Hills Excavation. Them guys are awesome. They are my backing in sprint car racing, and they take very good care of me. I literally could not do it without them. Like they are literally what makes that thing go around the racetrack every weekend. So, that's how I started, like, meet them through some friends. And they were like, hey, man, I showed them. They were like, what do you do? Like, and I was like, oh, and I showed them a picture of the sprint car that I'm about ready to go get. And they're like, dude, I want in on that. Like, that looks like fun. And I was like, yeah, sure. So go up there all the way to Greg's house. Dude, this guy is loaded, by the way, right? So I pull into this place. This dude owns a whole street. I'm like, I pull in, I'm like, where do I park? He's like, doesn't matter. I own every building on this road. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. Didn't you notice the road? The road name's like Hamilton Drive or something. I'm like, how loaded are you? Walk in his sprint car shop, dude. The best. There is not one thing in there that is not top notch. Like, he is top notch to everything.
To the team.
Yeah. Smith tie brakes. I mean, Eagle chassis. All carbon fiber, and he paints over the carbon fiber. That's when you know, like, you're big money, right? Like us guys, like, I don't paint over carbon fiber. He paints over it because he's so big money. And I'm just like, wow. And so, like, he's showing me all of the sprint car stuff, and I'm, like, trying to learn, So I bring that sprint car home, okay? Just me. I just went up there just by myself, dude, and I get that thing home. And actually, I was going to the fights in Medford because, like, one of my sponsors is one of the boxers.
Gotcha.
So I literally drive straight there, meet everyone, watch the fight, watch my guy fight, Mike fight, and so then that's how I kind of got hooked up with the Rogue Hills people, and then they've been like my title sponsor ever since.
You've got some safety in the pits then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
With the
time safety in the pits,
Note that.
no doubt about it.
Note that.
You're wheeling
there's
everyone.
Literally, there's no one that wants to mess with those guys in the pits. I promise you. But so then I got hooked in with them, and then like we put together our first Triple X. 8740 car. Mind you, I know straight zero about sprint car racing. So we show up to the racetrack, and I tried to figure it out myself first couple weeks. We were terrible. I actually had Randy Nunez come out and help me. He helped me. We kind of got in the right direction. He definitely got me going in the right direction. Like, got the gearing figured out, got the setup, the baseline setup figured out.
Yeah.
And so that was our first like year we ever ran a sprint car. We ran 9 races only at Medford. And then we were like, you know what? Cars in one piece. We learned a lot. Let's go to
Cottage Grove. ISCS season-ending doubleheader.
Season-ending doubleheader, yep. We went there for that. And I remember the first night.
You almost won the first. No, was it the first
Second night.
Second night.
First night, I just learned we didn't do that great. We ran the back of the main. Like, we made it, but we ran like the back. We weren't that great. Second night, dude, somehow win the heat race. Qualified decent. Actually, we qualified decent. We were like second or third in our group. Second in our group, I think. Won the heat race. I pulled the number 1 somehow out of that bag. Like, that's the only number 1 I've ever pulled, by the way, in my sprint car career.
Really?
Was that night. That's the only number 1 pill I pulled. Actually, wait, no. Take it back. My last race, I got the
number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about in a second.
So, started that race. You know, I'm used to go-kart stuff. This is totally different, dude. Like, the way tracks changes in sprint cars,
Unbelievable.
unreal.
Go-kart tracks don't change at all.
Brakes in sprint cars too, garbage.
Yeah.
So that's literally cost me that main event, right? So I'm like heavy on the brake because I'm used to go-kart racing. I'm heavy on the brake all the time in that thing, right? Like, you know, that's how you use that thing. You can use the brake in them go-karts so much more.
Oh, yeah. It's half of how you drive the race car.
Yeah. So I'm just doing that with the sprint car. Like, and I see the video like afterwards. We're waxing these guys, right? Like, we're dominating this race. 17 laps in, right? I burn the brakes up in lap traffic. Get past. Then I'm thinking, okay, it's faster on the top. So I move up. That wasn't it, Chief. It was so much better on the bottom. I only got passed on the top because I was holding everybody up trying to get by the lappers with no brakes.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, oh man. So we ended up sliding back to 5th. And like, okay, cool. That was like our first top 5, I think, in our sprint car career. It's like, okay, cool. Taking down all these notes because I'm trying to learn this by myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a crew chief. It was literally me, Wayne, and one other guy. Go into year 2, right? Like 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2020. Yep, that's it. So going into year 2, COVID hits. Our whole schedule just tanks, right? Like, I had a big deal planned with my sponsor and everything. I'm like, I took no money. I'm like, you know what? We're just going to race on our own dime when we can.
Yeah.
Because of how this is going.
Well, we didn't even know what.
Yeah, we didn't even know. Like, they just schedule a race like 2 days before.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, show up.
Yeah. So then that was a big learning year because we ended up.
Was that all local?
Nope, Cottage Grove. We ran every night at Cottage Grove because they didn't run Medford that year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
There's only like so many races.
That's when the news was all Save Speedway.
Yep. So we ran Cottage Grove 4 nights, and the third night. The first 2 nights we were decent. Like, I didn't know how to run that place very good. Like, I was still new. I'd only ran. So but going into last year, I had 5 total nights at Cottage Grove.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I had. So we had ran there and was really good. And like, that's when we'd put together our new KPC.
Yeah.
And so the third night we had ran and I popped the car out of gear, over revved it. Well, I didn't know that was going to hurt the motor.
Yeah.
The following week, like, it just, that's right. Then we went to Coos Bay that was the only other place we ran. We ran 3 nights at Grove, 1 night at Coos Bay the whole year. Go to Coos Bay that next weekend. We're running second place in the main, just cruising along. Like, we're ripping. And all of a sudden, a lap car spins out in front of me, loses a tire. The tire comes up, hits the torsion arm, and pushes the stop, knocks the stop off the end. I didn't have the stops. I didn't know that those were even the coupler things on I didn't know those were a thing. I was still new. Knocked that off. We end up 5th. I'm like, I held on for 5th somehow with no torque. Like, the arm literally was gone. And so the
car's
front's just
it's hopping.
Yeah, it's just floating away. And so then somebody told me, they make those things. Well, you're looking at my car. Why didn't you tell me this beforehand?
Yeah, no kidding.
And then we go to Cottage Grove the next weekend because that's when they ran Coos Bays on Wednesdays.
We ran.
Which I wish that was still a thing. I'd run every Wednesday night.
Why would racetracks not try that more?
I
No
agree.
kidding.
I would literally run every Wednesday night at Coos Bay.
Literally successful.
So then they did that, and then I went to Cottage Grove, and the thing was just down on power, and I'm like, what in the world? So my engine builder, come to find out, that's when you flatten or break valves and all that kind of stuff, and float valves and ruin engines. So
That's where the money comes out.
Yeah, that's where the money comes out. So figured that out. And then we go into last year, and I was really like, I wanted to really open our program up. I was like, you know what? I've never ran like this much in a season, and I got the sponsoring and I worked hard to get it. Like, I mean, I went out and I hit all these people up and like, and I mean, I had great relationships with these people in the past, and so I ended up getting all the funding that really I needed last year to run. Now looking back at it, I needed a little more than what I ended up with, but it ended up panning out. We ended up getting what we needed when it was all said and done. And like, we went into last year, and me and Chris Paxton, one of my good sponsors, good friend, helps on the car. Me and him went into it and just trying to learn, the setup of a sprint car and what that entails. And so that's where my good buddy Kevin Hogendorf, good friend of mine, he's something else. He literally texted me one day and was like, hey, do you know this guy named Travis? Like, never heard of him. He's like, he used to be a sprint car guy. He used to help Roger Crockett. I was like, okay, cool. He's like, his driver just quit. He's looking for a new driver. I'm like, okay, well, I can't afford to pay. I can't. I can't afford to pay anybody. So, so I'm like, I just can't. I can't pay him. And he's like, okay, well, he said he'll come and help you. I'm like, okay. So Travis shows up to help us the first night in Cottage Grove we ran all year. And I remember what happened. We just weren't good. He showed up in the main to help me. The rest of the night, like, I set the car up. So that's why it wasn't good. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just like throwing stones at it at this point, So Travis shows up. We started 15th in the main because we were terrible. Horrible, dude. Like, horrible. He's like, okay, do you mind if I set the car up? I'm like, that's what I brought you here for. They're like, yeah, go ahead, dude. Like, so I let him set the car up, dude. We went 15th to 5th in the main. I was like, this is like 9-day difference. Like, I don't know what this dude knows, but like, we need to get a part of this. And like, ever since then, like, Travis has been to every race except a couple last year. And man, our program, like, it definitely elevated. Like, I mean, we definitely took off. Like, Medford night, like, ran second to you.
In rubber.
I remember talking to you that night. I know you were like, kind of like, dude, I want to figure this out. Like, Tanner's flying.
Yeah, dude.
And I feel like we're faster than everyone else. And it's like,
and we were like, we were ripping and like,
we were zigzagging out
literally,
of traffic.
I remember in the dash.
Yeah.
I was in the dash because I waxed him in the heat race. You waxed yours in your heat race. I remember in the dash, I'm watching you, and I could literally see, like, you were just better than me off of 2. I was better than you off of 4. And I'm like, I just can't beat him. Like, how is he better than me off of 2? He was just better than me off of 2. I was better than him off of 4, but it wasn't equal. Like, I wasn't as equally as good off of 4 as you were off of 2, plus you had the clean air.
Yeah.
And so I remember running the main, and, like, there was one chance in the main.
Is that when Wheeler...
No, I think there was a lot of lap cars, I remember.
A ton of lap cars.
We were lapping guys like 5 times. And
I'd never been so scared in a sprint car.
You got to think, guys, to explain. There's literally rubber. And it's only rubber on the very bottom, a lane and a half wide. And if you run anywhere else, you're probably going to spin out. It was so dusty.
But this was rubber in hot laps.
It was rubber most of the night. It was bad.
Yeah, it was bad, right?
But it was a first night back type
First night back, yeah. So, and I remember running that deal and just thinking to myself, the whole time I'm following you, I'm like, why can't I close the gap? Like, the gap... Once it got out to a certain, it just never changed. Like, I'm never going to beat, I'm not going to be able to beat him, right? So that was a good race, though, for us. That was
for sure.
Mine and Travis's first top
3
podium together, Yeah. So that was cool, and so like ever since then we went to Coos Bay and ran second to Camden, and I was like, dude, this
ISCS
race. ISCS night. I'm like, dude, this bridesmaid thing's already getting old. And then like we ran a couple more seconds, and I was like, dude, we gotta like break out of this and like get there. And then
a big weekend, Freedom Cup.
And then came Freedom Cup, right? And like
now you're racing Carly.
Hang on, let me explain. Freedom Cup is a 3-night show at Cottage Grove with the same format as the Trophy Cup, pretty much. So it's all about. There's not only a winner each night, but the main thing that everyone's shooting for is the points championship. That's what paid the money.
Yeah, that's what paid the money.
And so pretty much, there's an invert every night. So the highest guy in points is going to start 12th every night in the main. And then on the final night, the highest guy starts last. Yeah. So take it away.
So our Freedom Cup was wild. Honestly, it was. Like, I went in there again kind of a zero expectations deal. You know, like we're here to get better. That's what
And I remember you told me like Cottage Grove was a struggle.
Right? Remember,
all year.
I literally made
Everywhere
you,
else, yeah.
I made you go out there with me, and literally you're like, you got to send it out the park. I'm like, I just can't do that. I can't bring myself to do that. Like, what are you talking about? Send it out the park. You're just like, dude, you have to literally just run the cushion. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's gonna hold you.
Yeah.
And like, it took me until Freedom Cup to figure it out. And like, so I remember the first night we qualified quick time, won the heat race. So we were high point guy.
Looking good.
Looking good, right? Going to the main, start 12th. Ended up 7th.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, not a
And
bad.
This is pretty good talent.
Yeah,
at
I
this
mean,
race.
you know,
it was like 25, 30
yeah,
cars.
so you start 12th because that's the invert, and you know, you end up 7th. You know,
And guys get spread out really easily.
yeah, I mean,
and I
you know, it was like, okay, you know, that was a good night to start, kick off. Like, we're gonna be decent.
Yeah.
Going to the next night, qualified. We actually didn't qualify very good the second day. We were like 11th. Still won. I think we ended up still winning the heat race. No, we got second. Got second in the heat race, and that heat race was where I finally like figured out the top. Like,
is that moment where you
it was
knew?
literally like that moment. Like, I remember that was when I slid Tyrell for the lead. Like, that was the biggest slider I'd thrown in a sprint car. And he crossed me and like kind of ran me out of room. I should have braked, turned under him. My own fault now that I watch it, but we'll learn for next time. And I just remember running the curb and just every time I'd get a little higher. And then finally I found that sweet spot where like, that's it. Like, that's where you got to be, and that's fast. And that's when you just start eating into guys. And then we ran the main that night, and actually we broke 2 spark plugs that night in the main. We started 5th, and I was like, man, we're going to have a good shot here now tonight. Like, we start in front of all the fast guys we started behind last night. Nope, broke 2 spark plugs and ended up 5th. And I was like, man, like, and the car was really good that night too. And I was just
Didn't have the power to do anything.
Didn't have the power, and found out. I told Travis, I'm like, I think something's wrong with the engine. Come to find out, yeah, 2 spark plugs were broken. Yeah, no wonder the thing's down on power. Mm-hmm. So fix that for the final night. And like going into the final night, I think we were like,
You guys had a heat race, right? You guys, so because you gained a bunch of points.
Yeah, that's when I gained all.
Were
the
you
points.
the highest point going into the A?
Going into the A.
So you started 18th.
Yeah, so in the heat, so I remember looking at the point system. Like, I wasn't really trying to play it at that time.
It's all about just go forward.
Yeah, all I was just thinking was, hey, I'm just here to learn. I just want to go forward. And I remember in the heat race, Tyler Thompson was in my heat race, right? And we started 5th. We ended up 2nd to Tyler. He started 3rd in the heat race, I think. Dude, he absolutely smoked me. Like, I remember running the curb as hard as I could, and he absolutely smoked me in that heat race. Like, he beat me by like half a track. I was like, wow, that car is fast. Well, it blew up on the last lap. It blew up taking the checker flag. So he won.
Tyler?
Yeah. He won. I got 2nd. So I when it all shook out, Kyle Alberding spun, Camden spun.
Everything went bad for everyone else.
Everything went like bad for everyone else, and it just happened that I really was like the only guy that went like that progressively forward. I passed 3 cars,
Which like in the heats was
huge.
so many points.
Yeah,
oh
which
my
was
gosh.
so much. So it all shook out, and like Ben Deathridge was like, hey, you know, like you're a high point guy. And I'm like, what? And I'm like looking, and I start looking. I go up there, and like I did an interview with them and everything up there, and like, you know, it kind of started to set in like, we have a legit chance to win this. Like, we are here. Like, that was like a turning point in the sprint car deal for us. Like, we're here against the best sprint car talent in Oregon. Like, you know, Tyler was there.
For sure.
You know, there were some good cars there that were hitters. And like, I was like, man, like, these guys have been doing this a long time. Like, we're ahead of them right now. Like, we got a chance. Kyle Alberding's really good.
Yeah, no, there was a ton of talent.
So some good cars. And so I remember like starting 18th in the main, and I just, you know, Travis was like, hey man, you know, and like, I just want you to know, like, whatever happens in this deal, I'm proud of you all weekend. You know, like, you've hung in there. You've been a top car, you know, against some good talent. Like, you know, whatever happens. And like, come to find out, you know, like, I'd only still worked with him a handful of times. We never started really like 18th in a field like that, you know.
Where like all the good guys are right there.
Yeah, where all the good guys are right there. And he even told me, he's like, you know, I've raced with some guys that, like, if you started 18th, like, that's where you finished, was 18th. Like, you just weren't, like, they just, you know, you don't want to tear up your stuff, or you don't want to take a chance. Like, and so, you know, I just remember starting 18th, and I just told myself, okay, I figured out how to run on the top. Travis is going to set me up for the late end of this deal. And I'm like, if I just get to 10th, I wanted to get to 10th with at the halfway point. It's 30 laps.
I know that. You start having these mental markers, and you're like,
so
dude,
it's like
I gotta get there.
If I can be on schedule. And I remember I was actually in 10th at 15 laps. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm not trying to play I'm going for the win. I'm not playing the points. I'm just going for the win. And I remember after that, I'm like, I'm just going to rip the boards. I'm going to rip the top until either I'm going to send it out the park or I'm going to win this deal. Yep. And I just remember ripping the top. And like, it took like 2 laps to get really the momentum rolling, you know? And all of a sudden it was just weird, dude. Like, I just started running the top and they just like start migrating down. Like, everyone was just trying, Carly was one of them, to migrate down to the bottom to like find something else. And I just was like on the curb.
It's working.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm passing cars. And finally got to 5th. Actually, Carly was in 4th. I hadn't passed her yet. And it was Camden, Bailey in the front. Yeah. And then Vern Seavers.
You got to 3rd with a couple to go.
Got to 3rd with
that's
right
what
at the very
won
end.
The race.
And that's what won it for us. And I just remember on that restart, I'm like, okay, I know Camden's got to be ahead of me in points, but I'm not playing that game. I'm just going for the win. So I remember Carly just pulled down on the bottom, dude, and I literally like wide open on the cushion. Like I was like, I'm winning or wrecking right here. Like I need to get by Carly.
Yeah.
And so I actually got by Carly, and then she was like, I could tell, I assumed that she was like, really? Like, really? Like, 'cause I know how Carly is. So,
yeah.
So
most competitive person.
Yeah. So I got by her, and then I got by the 15 car right at the end there, and then we ended up 3rd. And I was like, man, like, you know, whatever. If we don't win, we don't win.
Yeah.
But that was a drive. Like, I
that's
felt
a highlight,
good.
yeah.
Like, that was
Oh,
good.
dude, the race was so exciting because I was watching from the stands, and obviously you were next to Carly for a good portion.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
because Carly started back there with me, so we both kind of went forward
and she
together.
wasn't really like in it. I mean, she was in the points like good, but she wasn't gonna win because you guys had all migrated to the front as well.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right, she's like top 5 in points, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm watching you because we had talked all weekend, and I knew how big that was for you guys with how much speed. I'm like, dude, Johnny's flying.
Yeah.
But I was worried at the beginning of the race because I started counting it. Camden got to the front fast.
Yes,
Just
he
things
did.
went his way.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching, and I'm like, dude, Johnny's deep. I'm like, oh, he's stuck. There's just nothing you can do.
Yeah. So honestly, funny you bring that up. I remember lap 8, I was in 15th. I'd only passed 3 cars.
I think Camden was almost to the top 5.
And I think he was, I want to say he was in the top 5 at that point. And I'm just like, man, like.
It's over. Like, you know, it's hard to not think
it's like, you know, like, what do you, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep, and I just kept working the top, right? Because the only thing was like, there was so much going on with that many cars in front of you, right? So
and guys at different paces.
So it's like I had to pick and choose like where I went, and I didn't want to choose the wrong spot at the wrong time. So I figured if I just kept running the boards, I knew that the grip was there, and I knew our car was fast enough that if I could just keep going, and all of a sudden it just kind of fell like into my lap, just like perfectly. Like once I got by Kyle I knew was obviously like a really good car that I needed to get by. And I knew once
that was
I got
for like 6th or 5th, maybe, or
it might have been even a little further back. Might have been like 8th.
Okay.
Once I got by him, I knew that like that's when we were going to go forward. Because honestly, I had a better car than him, and he was holding me up on the top. And he was but he's good, so he knows where to go, right? So, and he was just kind of holding me up on the top, and I could see his car was too loose up there, and our car was just money, and it was just getting better and better and better. And I was like, dude, like this thing is getting good. And so like once it got really good on the top, dude, and I was just like ripping. I could drive that thing in there so straight. I just remember just like I could just barely turn the wheel, and it was just like a slot car.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome to win that deal. Like that was really. That gave all of us like a lot of confidence, like to go 18th.
Good
to
time
3rd,
of the year too.
Great time for us. And that came after we destroyed that car
on the first
2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks before, literally, we destroyed that car on the 25th of June, and we ran Freedom Cup the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of July.
Yeah.
So we,
rebuilt it
18th of June.
But you rebuilt everything.
We rebuilt. Todd Zeitler fixed that car, broke the car. He fixed it. We got it squared up, turned around, back in the trailer, and like showed up to Freedom Cup.
Did you notice? Did it feel better?
It didn't feel different at first. It's kind of feels a little different now. Like towards the end of the year, we started to notice some things. It's
the way she goes.
Getting wore out, So we did start to notice some things. But then after that, the season kind of
everything was going good.
Yeah, it was. At Freedom Cup time, it was going great. And then we kind of had a little up and down. We blew up a motor. Right before Speed Week.
Yeah.
That was right before Speed Week, blew up an engine. And, that was a point where I thought, honestly, our season was over. Like, I text my sponsor, and I'm like, send him a picture. I'm like, hey man, like, hate to do this to you. Like, I thank you for everything. And he literally called me up on the phone. He was like, hey, he's like, Speed Week's next week. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'll be down today. We're going to find a race engine. We're going to Speed Week. I'm like, oh, are you sure? And he's like, oh yeah. So he showed up and he says, here you go. Find an engine. Let me know how much it costs. I'll get you the stuff. We'll make it happen. I'm like,
Did you end up getting one or
yeah, so
renting?
I ended up getting one. So I bought one from Ian Bandy.
Okay, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
know
so
you got one. But.
Yeah, so I bought that. Got a good deal on it, right? Like, I mean, it was pretty cheap. So I just like, we'll make it live through the year, right? That was a wide awakening deal for Speed Week, right? To take something new that we didn't know and run against
that's
those
tough.
guys. And so, our engine before was definitely a hitter. I mean, after I run Ian's motor, now I can tell. Our A engine is a hitter. Like, it can run, like, running that Freedom Cup deal with that deal, there was no one that I felt like was faster than me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I could pass anybody that was on the track. Like, stride for stride, we were equal or better than them. Mm-hmm. I got that thing. It was definitely a lot different. It was not as rowdy as my engine was. And so, yeah, so we went to Coos Bay. Night one, dude.
Almost won the first night.
Dude, I'm literally, like, leading the race. And the bottom was getting a little better. And I went to go make a move down and take away the line from second. And I don't know. Everyone has their own preference of what happened. What I saw happen from me and my GoPro, I've watched it a million times, is I changed lanes. I'm the leader. Second place didn't stand on the brake. Like, that's just what I see. Like,
That's what I saw.
Second place didn't feel that way. That's okay. Whatever. And a lot of people didn't feel that way. A lot of people felt that I chopped him and wrecked him. And so, whatever. I'm not there to make friends.
Just happened.
I bring friends to the racetrack if I'm,
Yeah, the Aaron Reitzel quote.
Yeah. So
and poor Carly went flipping when this all happened.
Poor Carly gets the total, like, short end of that stick. Like, I felt so bad.
But it was that's just part
it's
of
a
racing
deal. But like, I felt bad because, like, you guys are my friends. Like, the last thing I want to do is tear your guys' stuff up. Yeah, I just talked about not bringing friends to the racetrack. And then, we're my friends.
Well, I'd say our whole friend group kind of struggled that night. I blew up on my first race ever.
You blew up the first night. And
Carly flips, and you get...
My whole front end's tore up, so
and starting the week like that, and that's it's a hard week no matter what. 6 nights in a row. You're traveling from literally Southern Oregon or over on the coast all the way to Washington.
And I didn't even have a nice trailer yet. So I'm like weaseling all this in my little go-kart trailer.
Your junked front axles and parts.
I remember we were scrambling in the hot pit, changing your stuff.
Yeah. And then I go back, right, and I run it back to like 4th or 5th and get wore out again. And I was like, dude, I just couldn't catch a break. So, I mean, it was just it was an eye-opening. Speed Week was an eye-opening deal for us. Like, that showed, like, what's next for our program? Like, where do we want to be? Like, we want to be able to compete at the highest level in this, just like we did in go-karts for so many years. And so, that's when we, we really buckled down and this year we've done a lot of work. And so
this gets to the one last moment as we've talked through so much, and this has been such an awesome episode.
It has. I've learned a lot.
Yes, awesome. Dude, you are a really good talker for one.
I know, that's my job. So like, I talk to people at work all day. So it's like, I can just talk on and like,
you're phenomenal. The one last thing we got to cover before we wrap this up. You go all year. Freedom Cup was huge, and I think that was, like you said, that was a turning point for your team.
It really was.
And it was cool to watch because since I was at a bunch of races, you were, and I was like on the sidelines. I was at a different angle helping Carly. So like I could see you guys were going through the same thing. Yeah. She had got her win in July, and so I saw like what that first win was like for her, and I knew yours were coming. Your time was coming. I told you that like 400 times.
I know. You kept telling me that, and I'm like, dude,
just don't worry.
I mean, you run second and third so many times.
It sucks.
And dude,
it sucks.
So at the end of the year, right? So, we're getting towards the end of the year there. We ran third 3 straight nights and a second. And I'm telling Travis, I'm like, I'm getting frustrated with running podiums at this point. Like, so it's just, but yeah.
And then that first win rolls around. So talk about that night. I mean, it's literally the end of the season.
Yeah, right.
It's crunch time. It's like, all right, if we're going to win a race in 2021, it's got to be tonight.
It's got to be tonight. Right. So, so I remember going into that night, it was our last night of the year.
Grove.
Yep. And it was September 22nd. I remember the whole day how it went.
Yep. And I remember, and I just remember showing up, and I felt the pressure. I did. I felt it. Like, I got sponsors. I have a ton of sponsors. I mean, you all have, I mean, you have all seen my Facebook posts. Like, I do have a lot of supporters. It's awesome. Like, You have a lot of supporters.
Absolutely.
It's crazy how much
you don't want to let them down. Like,
Yeah,
no, but
you
you're
don't
also
wanna
doing
let
it. You're
them
doing it
down.
for yourself, your crew, your people.
And I have found that like these people, they really do it because they like me. It is more that than
if you don't even honestly, as much as like really, if you win or lose, it's not that
They
to
do,
them.
yes.
But obviously, wins are cool.
Wins, that gives them something to be excited about. I feel like for us, like we're excited, then they're excited. And so, I went into that last week and I'm like, man, I do need to impress these guys. Like we have been on an impressive run the last 4 weeks, third, second. I'm like, dude, we've been on kill. Like we're just
It'd be great to cap it off.
just like one sliver away. And that whole night, we qualified 5th. I remember it, qualified 5th, ran second in the heat? Won the heat race.
You start on the front row.
Yeah. The roll was a 0.
Something,
we won the
so
heat
you're
race.
on the zoo. Yeah, because I think
Carly won the heat race too.
Yeah, I think I don't know where Carly started. She started
second.
Oh yeah, she must have.
Started
yes.
right next to me.
Yeah.
I remember because she was all like, "Oh, well, I can't wait to blow your door off on the top," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, the top ain't it. Trust me, it's way too hooked up for that." Yeah. So I remember taking the green. I remember running that deal, and I remember 3 laps in, I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to try the top. I'm going to try it now. That way, if it's junk, I get back down on the bottom.
Which is a good strategy.
If it's not junk, I'm going to know for something for later." I remember running the top and looking back over at Carly like this.
You're looking over your left side shoulder.
And I could see her gaining literally substantially as I'm running. I could visibly see the difference of how much, and I could feel it, right as soon. Yeah. So automatically back on the bottom. And I started driving away from Carly. And I didn't know it, obviously, at the time, how well I was actually doing at that point of driving away from her. But then I went back and watched the video and I saw it. Started driving away from her, right?
Sure, there was some distance.
Yeah, there was some distance there for a while. And then all of a sudden in the video, you start seeing her close back in. Her car's getting better. Dude, my gear was junk, right?
Dude,
So
I screwed Carly too.
Yeah, we prepped for
it to get slicker.
And it got heavier.
Yeah.
So we were just, we're out.
If I would have known that, I would have loosened Carly up a lot more. I would have changed the gear and everything.
So I got super tight and super gear bound. Like I was just like, and all of a sudden I saw this little nose wing as I was going into the corner. I could see it coming out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, that's Carly. Yeah. She's right there. Like she is like right there. And I started watching the lap thing and I'm like 5 laps ago, I can hang on for 5 more laps. So I just kind of like changed up my line just a little bit on entry because I was a little bit loose getting in and I knew if I left the door open, eventually Carly was going to take for it. Yeah. So I just started like straighter getting in and I just ended up holding on and that was awesome. Like winning in a sprint car is wild. Like, it's a different.
What were your thoughts like
afterwards?
No, when you take the checkered, are you just
what's that moment? Moment.
I mean, it was a sigh of relief, honestly, for us because we worked so hard for this type deal all year. We'd been knocking on the door wins all season long, Coos Bay early in the year, Medford,
ISCS, everything.
ISCS, numerous nights we'd been so close and to finally bust through and get that win. It was just awesome. I was pumped. Wayne wasn't even there. He was at home watching on TV.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was at home watching on TV and it was just me, Travis, and Chris. And so it was awesome. I did a wing dance. It was sick. It was awesome.
Crowd, everything.
I was just, and the crowd was so pumped.
Yeah.
It's crazy because in go-karts, they don't do that.
There's not much of a crowd, but in a sprint car,
you win at Red Bluff, so it's a little different. I don't. But to win in front of that many people, so much cooler. And Cottage Grove does a good job, so it wasn't super late at night. So the stands, dude, they stood up and they were pumped and screaming. It was awesome.
It was a pretty good race, even though there wasn't a lot of passing. It was the top 3 you could throw
with the lapped cars were wild, dude. I just started. I'm like, nope. Sorry. I gotta go. Carly's on me. So it ended up being awesome. And last year was great. And and this year we got more support. Honestly, we've gotten a lot more support. We got a new car coming, new goals. We're gonna try out some wingless stuff, which I think is gonna be a lot of fun. And go hopefully 360 racing. And maybe get to run some of those big 360 races.
Quick question there. I know talking about how important your dad's been in your career, always being with you at races. What was that phone call like?
So he didn't phone call me because obviously there's so much going on, after the races, I was pumped. I'm talking to Ben, we're having interviews and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he texted me, I probably still have it. And he texted me, he says, "Wow, you are a badass." And he spelled you with just U and then R. So it's just but that was the most Wayne Burke,
that was your dad.
Congratulations. That's sick.
But he was,
all that
he's
hard
hyped,
work.
but he was hyped.
And honestly, he was burnt out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot on a, you know, on a team
Yeah.
to run even like 30 races. I mean, you run a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And it's just
so-
a lot
oh,
to
dude.
keep going, and especially on one car.
Especially when you're getting like your butt kicked,
Podium.
and by getting kicked by guys that are better.
Yeah.
there's better than
Yeah.
you. They're better
Yeah.
than you,
I
and
mean,
you're
like,
you're trying to get to that level.
It was crazy for me to just like, you know, and all that, it didn't matter at that point. You know, we'd won. It was a great way to end the year. Like, honestly, like that really catapulted us, you know, and that, you know, the sponsors were stoked. Like, you know, everyone's happy, you know, like it's cool to get that. So, you know, and then that really catapulted us into, you know, this year and what we're going to do. And, you know, it's been great. Like, I have such great support. Like I do. I have so many good sponsors. And literally, I've just, like this year, I just took them, hey, here's what I want to do. Like, would you like to help me make this happen? And they're just, yeah, you know, I'm all for it. Like, and they show up to all the races, you know, like I got people that travel to Grove and people that are going to travel with us this year.
That's awesome.
I've got sponsors. I got 2 of them already that say they want to go full
If
speed
you
week.
want to shout out, just
Yeah, so I mean, I got Rogue Hills Excavation, I've got Hilton Landscape Supplies, Canopy Countries, obviously our own personal business, but you know that helps. That pays for all
Absolutely.
the engines, all the travel, all that kind of stuff. You know, the truck, the trailer. You know, I can't do it without all these guys. And you know, I've got White Delight Promotions, I've got Norpac Power Systems, Central Point Electric, CP Racing, Central Welding Supply, Thompson Construction. I got my grandparents that put in a big hand in this. Dean Hunt, one of my grandpa's best friends, really loves racing, and like he's just helps us
crazy.
out, you know. So, and I've got you know, CNC tires. They mount up all my tires for me for free. I don't have to mount any sprint car tires.
Wow.
Literally take it over there, drop it at their place.
dude, I need that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you need to hit up Taylor over there at
Dude.
CNC Tires. Your poster's still in their shop.
That's funny. Wow.
Actually,
Wow.
I think it's coming down because mine's going up. So.
Oh, dang, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so you know, everyone helps out. Nielsen Construction and Susie Nielsen Photography made all my posters this year, which turned out epic. So you know, that's cool, and I got to give all those out to the sponsors. You know, and you know, it's just something nice to give back to them. Just say, hey, thank you for this year. You know, I mean,
For sure.
without you guys, I really couldn't have done it. Like, and that's the truth. Like, I can only go so far by myself. You know, at some point, you got to have support. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, my parents support me a lot. My girlfriend supports me a lot, even though I'm gone every weekend and
Yeah.
she's not very fond of that, but she seems to do okay. So, you know, and it all pans out, and I really couldn't do without all these people because, like, it would never happen. Like,
That's crazy. Bennett, I don't think there's anything else we could possibly add to this interview. This was incredible.
I think there's a lot more unracing related topics that I'd
Yeah.
like to talk about with you. So I think that's
We're gonna have you back
We're gonna
on.
have to have you back on.
Okay.
That's all I'm thinking.
This is
well,
awesome.
I also think we need to do like a vlog, and we need to have like a go-kart race here at the Holmes.
Oh,
compound.
So we're
Coming soon. It's-
figuring it out.
If Bennett's been looking at my whiteboard, and it's on the whiteboard. I don't know if you saw that, but I got on the whiteboard Johnny Burke versus Tanner Holmes backyard track race.
Well, you need to get in a cart too.
Oh,
I need
we
a
need to
cart.
get about 5
Wingless
maybe
sliders,
get like
yeah?
six of us up here. Throw a couple guys in the
If
mix.
I can
Carly,
you give
oh
me-
man,
hey.
Carly, I'll dump her like road karting.
If you put together the worst chassis you can, I'll run it.
Okay, dude,
I don't
got,
care.
Hey, I got old RFCs, dude. I'll weld my old RFC back together. That's broken at my
I guarantee
shop.
I can
I'll
find
run
a
it.
motor. I can find you a bad
I
boy
guarantee
motor.
you,
Let's
it'll
do it.
probably be all of our current cars.
Well, because I've only got the dwarf car. I mean,
Oh,
I'm out
yeah.
of carts. So
Which he's bringing the dwarf
I'm
cart
not
to
bringing the
Rick, too.
Pepsi wrap though to the backyard bash.
I don't blame you. I might
Okay,
just
yeah,
leave all my
the Pepsi
body at
wrap's
home.
pretty sick, so I can't do
Hey,
that.
I got my dad's. I think it's maybe a late 80s, early 90s wing. And,
Oh,
yeah.
dude.
So I'll
Yeah.
be set. Yeah.
That's sick.
No.
I know. I got actually my very first go-kart wing in the shop. Maybe I'll bring it down off the rafters to run.
That'll be sweet. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of Off the Track. Johnny Burke, Bennett Gooch, and myself, Tanner Holmes, signing off for now, and we will see you guys on the next Wednesday show. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.